your life.
Morning, this is the News Wire. I'm La Ubaga. The President will today commission a last-mile electrification project in Metheru, Tharaka Nithi County and flag off some projects at Embu Town. He'll conclude his tour by visiting Nyeri County tomorrow morning and Kiambu County in the evening. Yesterday, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua suffered a major blow after Maragua MP Mary Wamaua announced her defection to President William Ruto's camp. Wamaua, who spoke when Ruto visited Murang'a, pledged to support him going forward, noting that a majority of residents in her constituency were already in support of the president.
Hata ingawa Your Excellency ulikuwa unaniona na ukaniona. Right from November we were talking with Professor Kithure Kindiki na ako hapa. Your Excellency kutoka December tulikuwa tumeanza kuongea na wewe. Na nikakwambia Your Excellency wewe ni rafiki yangu. Isipokuwa tu ni hapo kidogo kuteresa sio kuanguka. Si ndio hiyo? Na kwa sababu His Excellency ameuliza swali na watu wale wameniajiri wameongea, na mkiwa mumeongea mnajua mimi namwambianga hapa ni kama Ruthu na Naomi, where you go I go. Whoever you call your God, I call him God. And whoever you call your president, I also call him my president.
Earlier, President Ruto was in Nyandarua County where he announced that the national government has taken over the completion of the JM Kariuki Hospital, which had stalled at 48% due to lack of funds.
Huyu gavana wenu alikuja akaniambia na huyu Faith na hawa viongozi wakaniambia ya kwamba hii hospitali pengine county haitaweza kukamilisha. Na mnajua hii hospitali imeitwa jina ya JM Kariuki na ni kiongozi ambaye alijulikana katika taifa letu, na mama wa mke wa JM yuko hapa. Nimemwaahidi ya kwamba hii hospitali serikali ya Kenya tutamaliza na tutaweka equipment na itaserve ama itahudumia watu wa Nyandarua County.
The investigation into the murder of Multimedia University student Sylvia Kimto is ongoing, with the main suspect being Philip Mutinda, who is her alleged boyfriend. Witnesses to the incident say Mutinda was seen struggling with a bag that is said to be Kimunto's while he was moving it from her room on the 3rd floor to his Block E residence. Kimto, who was a student of communications and computer science, disappeared under mysterious circumstances last Sunday. Her mother, Tracy, as well as fellow students and neighbors, have called for justice.
Ile kitu aliniambia kuna kijana anamsumbua, ampendi, anamforce anataka akuwe rafiki yake.
Mimi nikakuja majioni kitu ya 10 hapo. Nikapata the guy with the suitcase anajaribu kuilalia on the top of the head, hapo kwa head kama pillowcase, and then it felt uncomfortable, then I decide kuiweka hapo tu kando ya hiyo desk. And then after that the morning kuamkia niliamka kitu 8 hapo, nikapata hiyo jamaa bado nikashatoka na yuko around, na the suitcase was also not around.
Well, as IEBC interviews continue today, just today, after the National Assembly passed a motion to extend the tenure of the IEBC chairperson and 6 commissioners nomination committee by another 14 days, the Senate has followed suit. In the decision, senators approved the motion to extend the tenure of the committee by another 2 weeks. The senators who supported the motion, however, complained about what they said was a poor process for interviewing people who applied to serve in the IEBC Commission in the positions of commissioners and chairperson. Meanwhile, the issue of the Senate Speaker not being included in the letter sent to the House to extend the tenure of the task force has angered the senators, who are complaining about what they say is contempt for the House. My apologies for that. And those opposing the motion, led by Busia Senator Okello Mtata, complained about the lack of arguments to persuade the extension of the tenure of the panel headed by Nelson Makanda.
We have not been moved to grant any extension of time. Madam Speaker, I've looked through the motion and I'm just seeing a recitation of nothing. There's a lot of words here, but they say nothing. Not a single reason has been given as to why we should extend the time of the IEBC. All I can see written down here are things like noting that, further noting that, conscious of, further conscious, now therefore. There's no reason given why they want to extend time.
That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can't run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Getting into Friday, what does it look like on these streets today? Let's take a quick look. Traffic starting to build on the Thika Superhighway. Nothing crazy, not yet at least. We'll see some traffic getting towards Survey. And as you look onto Jogo Road, a little bit of traffic building towards Landis, other parts of the city, Westlands, coming off of Waiakiwe, Ngong Road, coming off of through from Ngong Town. Traffic is flowing smoothly, not a problem here, at least not for now. We're going to keep an eye on all of this as we get into Friday proper. Let's talk as we keep things moving. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. Apply for the I&M Bank World Credit MasterCard on the I&M Bank on the Go app. Swipe, earn and live your best life. What's even better, every 20th customer to get the card gets 50,000 Milele reward points worth 50,000 shillings.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning. It's Friday. It's the 4th of April, and here we are at 9 minutes after 6 o'clock and getting into April proper. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Salama sana.
Uko salama?
Kabisa, as you can see.
Very, very good.
Na wewe?
Mimi niko poa. Najaribu.
Karibu sana.
Tunashukuru Mungu. CT is in, there's a word for it, I can't remember, the monochromatic. So he's wearing burnt orange, he's wearing brown, and his shoes are also brown, and he's wearing another shade of brown trousers. Your matching this morning is fantastic.
What did you call it?
Chromatic.
Yeah, monochromatic.
So I'm saying,
actually it's not monochromatic.
Chromatic is what?
It's like on the color spectrum.
Oh, so I'm now on the color spectrum.
You are, and you've done very well.
I have, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Burnt orange and brown actually go together very, very well.
They do, huh?
Did you plan this, or did you just kind of throw things together?
I make up my mind when I'm dressing.
Okay. While on the job. You're those guys for we live on the job.
Trouser, you make up your mind. 2 or 3 trousers in a week, and I have very many trousers that are shades of brown and then green. Yes.
Okay. It's nice. Very, very good. Well done. Good. You're fine though this morning. Good morning.
I'm very well. Yes.
Thank you, please.
Monochromatic. Very good.
Something new every day. Sindio. Yeah. Okay, guys. We're going to have a couple of conversations. I'm fine. Don't worry. Everything. I'm okay. So we're going to have a couple of conversations this morning. I'm going to let you know what some of those are as we get into the hours from 7 o'clock today. We will have a conversation around... Okay, where did it go? Where did it go? I'm lost. Don't worry, everything's going to be what? Everything is going to be all right. All right. At 7 o'clock, we're going to be looking into President Ruto's Mount Kenya tour. Alex Mwathe, who's a political analyst, will join us at 7 o'clock. And we'll be looking into the intrigues of that. Many things happened yesterday. We were in Maua. Maua the day before that, Okello yesterday. And it seems as though the crowds then spoke. There were different generals who came out to speak and said certain things. And the response gotten from the crowd can be said to mean one or another. And then coming towards the final day of his tour today, getting into the weekend, the question is, did it achieve what it was supposed to achieve? And what does this mean then essentially going forward? Everybody's been shouting down the mountain essentially. So let's have a conversation with Alex Mwathe at 7 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, it is Healthy Friday. Bipolar disorder has been taking the world by storm. You wouldn't know if the person next to you actually suffers this condition. And Victoria Rika, who is a psychologist and head of corporate mental wealth and wellness programs at the Chiromo Hospital Group, will join us, and we'll be talking about unmasking bipolar mood disorder. A lot of times we throw it around like a joke. Oh, she or he must be bipolar the way they're behaving, without realizing that it actually could be true. So let's look at the intrigues of that on our Healthy Friday discussion at 8 a.m. And finally, dear Mr. President, Fanya Mambo Kenovia will join us at 9 o'clock, and we'll be saying a number of things to the president. Is that session where we do and talk about the things that are happening in the nation and address the presidency directly. Those will happen from 7, 8 and 9 o'clock on this 4th day of April, getting into Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Ndu CT and Dennis with you here this morning. And as we get into those conversations, karibuni sana. Live streams are up. Yes, they are. Are you on YouTube? Are you on Facebook? Are you on X? That's where you'll find us. And of course, tuned into radio around the country and indeed around the world. Sasa, tunataka kuwasalimia. And I know that there are people who are locked into the room this morning. So even as we do, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, a good morning, a big one to you. Do tell us where you're tuned in and clicking in from. And also, if you've never done it, tell us and we will welcome you properly. George Adntimo says, good morning from Rongo. R says, Nyinyi. Then we say, wewe. Oh, okay. Sawa. Sisi.
Ama wewe.
Sisi na wewe. Michael Olande says, good morning to you all. It's a cool morning in Kigali. Good morning to you. Robert Mbogo is tuned in from Mombasa. Rose Grace says, big team, good morning. Continue doing the amazing job that you are doing. Asante Sana, sister. Don Sabwa, we see you. Good morning, Ndu CT and Dennis. Desmond Otis says, good morning, Mbongi. Mbongi. Oh, a.k.a. crew. Mbongi's crew.
Mbogi.
Oh, Mbogi. He has put an N there. We don't pronounce the N. Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, typo.
Sour. The proverb of the day, according to Desmond, he says, the moment your hands are coated with grease or oil is when your nose starts to itch. He's tuning in from Uhanya Beach. Mashari Anjero says, good morning, Spice Team. Watching in from Portland in Oregon and says, have continued to do a good job. Thank you so much. Ndu Dennis and CT. Kimani Shungwa got a dose of his own medicine. Listening in from County 001 is Peter Kiarye. Happy Friday, Spice. This is Monica Oily. Good morning to you, Monica. Thank you so much. Tuned in from Huntingdale in Western Australia. Douglas Kibogong says, good morning. Ndu Dennis and the rest of your crew, CT. We are on board. We have boarded. Fantastic. Princess Ndu, good morning, Leo, CT and Aseto. The problem of playing to the gallery, prices, projects and utterances changes with the crowd being addressed. That's true. Milk was 53 shillings in Sagana. Now it's 50 shillings in Yandara. Yeah, it depends on where you go. Good morning, SpiceFM guys. It's their time to go around the mountain after touching it. Well, let's see. Carol Nyambura says, good morning. Nawapenda sana, wishing you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, Carol. Welcoming the spring in Ice City. Good morning from Harbin, says KK. Good morning, Wadao. Good morning to you, Dr. Venvik. Hesbon says, good morning. CT, Princess Ndu Dennis, and Queen Ednah have been crowned queen. When we went to grow our democracy, our institutions are critical. President should stop attacking the control of budget over vehicles. Sawabasi. Douglas says, whereas CT is the elder, whereas Ndu's gender balancing, and whereas Aseto doing well. Good morning, everybody. Sawa. Eric Owar says, good morning. By Trump calling reciprocal tariffs, he has started an economic global war. I don't think we realize the impact of they realize the impact of what geopolitics will actually spin into with this possible reciprocity of, Trump says we're going to shut it down. Other countries say, well, so will we. And it looks like if we're going to have conflicts in the global scale, the next global conflict will be an economic one, purely.
It doesn't have to be a conflict, really. No, it's just a realignment.
Of things moving.
Yes, because essentially what is happening, most assuredly, is America is relinquishing the position it had.
Yeah.
As a geopolitical, geoeconomical superpower. That's what it's doing. And when it relinquishes that... It looks like if we're going to have... If it relinquishes that, then what it means is that other people will take that position.
Yep. And they're not relinquishing it voluntarily. They don't enjoy it.
The president's actions are doing precisely that.
He may not realize the import or the impact of what he's doing.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is exactly what he's doing. And as nature abhors a vacuum, that position that they held, other people will take it up and they will fill it.
And they are taking it real fast. It's happening.
Yes.
Okay. Sangonini Bana Baspice FM says, Otkin, we see you. Good morning. CT, you look awesome.
Thank you. Lucky
Njoki says, you look awesome.
Thank you.
Tawa. Good morning from a cold and rainy Tenwek. How's the plantation on your end, says Jack Katambo. Attica says, Nani amechokoza Ndu. Wapi? Mimi niko sawa. Lucky says, mnafaa muwe political tutors. Really? Restituta Mutoku says, good morning, everybody. Agri Momanyi says, good morning, keep shining bright, love you always. Ndu is waiting. Wait a minute. Oh, Agri, it said something before. Happy 12th birthday, Chloe. You are growing into such an incredible smart. I'm assuming that Chloe is your daughter. Well, happy birthday to you, Chloe. And you're waiting for me to sing. Chloe is 12. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chloe. Happy birthday to you. I hope she's listening. May you have many, many more, Chloe. You're growing, and I trust you're growing into a bright young lady, into a wonderful woman, and may the best of your years be ahead of you. Mutuflani says, good morning. Yeah. Happy birthday, Chloe. Mutuflani says, good morning, and says, in Maua, they dug up a sewage pipe so that the president could launch it. The audacity of things. Eunice Okello says, good morning, Spice team. Tuned in, shining bright indeed. My prince, good morning. Good morning. Mount Kenya came out in large numbers to see the people who were causing them untold suffering. Wow. Sour. Don't say what you think. Engineer Karaoke says, good morning, tuning from Memphis. Ndu City Dennis, the mountain is slippery. Surprising Ruto hasn't declared free bananas or potatoes. Okay. Twali Brian says, good morning, Princess Ndusiti and Dennis. Sending messages from Juba, South Sudan. Keep my country in your prayers as we face political tensions indeed. Eloquency and smart minds, I love you guys. Well, Asante Sana. Awilo Garang says, good morning. Good morning. B Legend is also tuned in from Dallas in the Lone Star State. Good morning, team. Listening from Thika. CT even matched the frames of his glasses. CT, I'm telling you today, there's something like a phenomenon. Something like a phenomenon.
Something is in the air.
I'm telling you, and it's proper.
There's a bug going around.
Kuna kiru.
Dennis has got it.
He's got it. There's a bug. Ivan Omondi Oderas is locked in from the Republic of Kisumu. Kiwajalo. Nelson Amimo says, good morning, billionaires. Hard work must pay. Indeed, it must.
It is called UK.
United Kisumu.
United Kisumu.
Sorry, boss. Tibbs Muga says, good morning from Old Bexley in the UK. Can the tariffs be used as a chance to economically unite the regions? I don't know that you will see a unification of regions. Not just yet. The geopolitics is still a little bit too harsh. For people to say, let's live in one world together, I don't know. 100% agree with UCT on the economic realignment, but is anyone really positioned to take over? Well, we'll see.
Yes.
Yeah, there are many.
Oh, yes.
There are very many.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Samuel Kema, good morning. Good job you're doing. Tuned in from Abu Dhabi. And John Gishuki, good morning to you. Kikao Nasauti says, tuned in from Tanzania. Atieno, we see you. Tuned in from Kilifi. Good morning to everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. Watch us CT, I eat with QT.
QT. Hey. CT. QT here is CUTIE. It's.
You seem happy with yourself.
You're a cute brother.
As I said, you seem happy with yourself.
Leo ni ile siku. Akwambia.
Ogopa
sana kabisa. So good to be here, guys. Every day that you join us in this room, we don't take it for granted. That is for sure. And we don't say it enough. So thank you always for making the Situation Room your one stop when you wake up every morning, for us to have conversations that matter and conversations that should spur onto action. And so you join us in those conversations, and we are grateful every day that you do. We are still in Comoros.
Yes. I want to mention, this is the final day of our program from the Comoros. Their government is what you call a unitary presidential republic. And they have a president. He's called Azali Assounami.
Azali is a tsunami.
No, not Azali is not a tsunami. Azali Assounami. Asu, S-O-U. So then they have a president of the assembly, what you call parliament. Okay, now he is called Mostadrion Abdu.
Mostadrion. It sounds like when you say his name, Mostadrion, you expect there to be a red cape flowing behind him, and a horse and a carriage somewhere, and a mustache that curls like this,
and drums,
and a hat.
And every time he features, there's some drums that should be announcing his arrival.
There's some smoke huko nyuma.
As there are lights from the chariot, there's a sword being dangled somewhere. Mostadrion.
It's a guy who used to watch Star Trek.
Telling you. Sword, Ednah.
We just stopped him from saying one. The final proverb for the week. A whistle will not call back a dog that has escaped from the leash.
You need to use the right tools for the right situation.
Yes. You have, if it was an exam, 10 out of 9.
Thank you, please. Overachiever.
Yes, that's it.
A plus.
Yes.
You got to know what works where, and when and how.
And how to apply it.
Yes, and how to apply it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's a good one to get into as we do certain things and make certain moves. Got to know the right tools to use. Let's look into the headlines, shall we? Fanya ile digital. Wacha mimi nianze na hii. Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard. And today's headline, People's Watch. President William Ruto has been pleasantly surprised by the reception he has received in Mount Kenya, that he has added more stops and a few more hours to his itinerary, much to the chagrin of his henchmen, who are having a difficult time facing home crowds. They are jeered and booed, an indication they could be living on borrowed time.
So he said, hey, vile mnanipenda hapa siendi sitoki. All Cloud residents accost Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah yesterday. The inset is President William Ruto addressing the crowd in Nyandarua County, and he says, for this I will stay a little longer. Fertilizer hiccups threaten country food security, and in terms of its supply and where it's going, let's see that. Trump tariffs to erase Kenya trade gains. The tariffs these are the tariffs that we're talking about now. And over the last couple of years, the agreements that Kenya has come into with other countries, one of them being the United States. Now, with those tariffs, what does it mean? Gains, so now you're taking a couple of steps back, even when you thought you were moving forward. Insurance, Jubilee posts super profits. The LSK has told the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, to apologize or quit. The Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, thought he was doing his boss's bidding when he addressed the crowd in President William Ruto's Nyeri tour. What he forgot was he's an independent and impartial officer. And for that, lawyers insist he must apologize or step down as the police boss. Choose, my friend. You want to be a politician? Be a politician. You cannot take sides, especially when you deal in an impartial office. We'll look into the details of that. Leaders eulogize Raila's bodyguard of decades, George Otor, who had been Raila's bodyguard, died after a short illness. These are some of the headlines in the Standard today, and we'll look at more of those in detail as we go along. Voila. AQT.
Yes. We are going to look at the Star.
Okay.
Right. See, Star. What does the Star have for us today? Who deserves the praise? MP and agency in tug of war over Shoddy Road. Chronicles of Kenya. Senators to prove surge in clinics near county hospitals.
Senators to prove?
Probe, sorry.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. There's a power surge.
Okay. I understand. B and V are next to each other on the keyboard, so they must be next to each other in your brain as well.
Right. Flawed revenue framework needs overhaul. That's what the governors are saying.
Okay.
Car loan, no thanks, says civil servants.
They don't want car loan.
It appears you want me to read it for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is what it says. The Auditor General has flagged the low uptake of loans forcing managers to invest in idle 40 billion in treasury bills.
They want people to take money. People don't want to take money.
It's available. People are saying they're not interested.
See, I have an idea. See, you're 40 billion. See, there are things we can do with 40 billion. So you just divert it.
It doesn't apply to us.
No, not us, like me and you, but like the country.
I've just told you it doesn't apply to us.
So they can divert that money.
The country is not involved in this.
Civil servants, they said they don't want money for loans. Is it from a bank? Is the money from a bank?
It is available to them.
Is it from a bank?
Car loans are available to them. It's one of the things that they are offered.
Okay. Oh, okay. I understand. Okay. I understand.
Because if it is bank money, the bank would be, it's their business. They wouldn't even talk about it. They'll just do something else.
With it. It's true. I hear what you're saying. I get it.
Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing
I hear you.
Please.
Yes. Odiwar, humble Raila aide who wielded power.
Come, is his name Odur or Odiwar?
Let me repeat. Odiwar.
Kila mahali wanasema Odur.
Odiwar.
Sorry, boss.
Odiwar.
You see, you're going to read the headlines on The Nation first. You'll tell us what it says. Yes. Please continue.
Concerns over poor diets and healthy food choices. This is in a report that lobbies have sent to the UN. Remember, we are a country where 12% of our people do not really know what they're going to eat next.
Yeah.
But a staggering 42 million people do not eat nutritious food.
In terms of a balanced diet.
Yes, they do not. They don't. They just eat.
You're not thinking about what's giving you energy. You're not thinking about what's bodybuilding. You're not thinking about...
Those are too many details. It's food you eat.
See, my stomach is full.
You eat.
Yeah.
Then if there's a gap, you drink water.
And leave some space for breathing.
Right. news brief. Trump slaps our coffee, tea with tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay. There are many stories in the Star, but for now, we shall leave it at that. Bang in the middle of the paper. Inside Ruto's major fight back against former DP Gachagua.
Okay.
That is what is in the Star.
Imagine for a minute, just imagine if people used all this energy for fighting to actually get work done. Can you imagine how far you'd be? But just imagine.
That is not interesting.
It's not interesting. It's not fun.
No, it's not fun. What is fun is when you do the things that nobody elected you to do. That's fun.
That's what carries the day, yeah? Wow.
When you do the things that nobody elected you to do.
Yep, that's when now you're making progress.
Yeah.
And that now is fun.
Mm.
It's even entertaining. But what isn't entertaining is the suffering that brings about to the people who actually need that help and people who need those services. That now is where the problem arises. Now, the Business Daily.
Yeah.
Hamed Eshani, the low risk. Oh,
yes.
QT today is cuting around. QT, continue.
The problem.
Tunakupenda bure City.
There's a problem.
Which one are you using now? Decide.
No, there's a problem. Because this online edition doesn't have the same things as the real paper. But anyway,
there's a problem.
Let's go with the hard copy, shall we? Precious metal dealers race to meet registration deadline. Dealers in precious metals and stones face cancellation of trade permits from next week if they fail to register with a financial reporting center. Okay? So that one I've said to Mwacha Kando. Jubilee raises dividends as profits jump 82.5%. Jubilee Holdings has raised its ordinary dividend for the year December 2024 by 12.5% to 13.5 per share after reporting a jump of 82.5% in a net profit of, wait for it, 4.7 billion mingi pesa. EABL bid to buy out small owners in Uganda falters. An offer by listed beer maker East African Brewers Limited to buy out minority shareholders in its Ugandan subsidiary fell short of the target. Right. There's a section in this paper called Life, and it talks about a gentleman by the name of Hamed Eshani. Okay? Very good. Bang in the middle of the paper, how Mitumba and corruption put Kenya on Trump's tax list. Kenya among 180 countries hit with the reciprocal tariffs. Export to the U.S. expected to be less competitive. With a population of 1.3 billion on the continent, for heaven's sake, you leaders, why don't you figure out a way of trading among yourselves?
Sell to each other. Sell to
1.3 billion is a massive marketplace.
Just sell to yourselves.
America first. America.
Can you imagine? And what are you even selling to the America? Come, what is Kenya selling to America that you cannot sell here first? What is Uganda selling to America that you don't sell here? Let me tell you something. And that's not a lie. Imagine, like Nigeria, we don't have tea. We don't grow. There's very little tea that's grown in Nigeria. It's minuscule.
But do you guys have game parks?
Yeah, we do. Actually, you know what? City, when we go, I need to take you to a game reserve called Yankari. The waters are blue like this cup. Blue, clear
you can drink
water. It's beautifully amazing. I have to take you to the water.
What animals do you guys have?
We have elephants. We have...
The elephants in Nigeria?
Can we not go there? What I was trying to tell you...
Which elephants?
No, you're just asking.
The African elephants. Now, which one do you want?
Oh, okay. You have elephants.
Yes.
Okay.
Yankari Game Reserve is amazing.
Giraffes?
No, we don't have giraffe. A few
The
there.
elephants are imported?
Imported elephants.
From Kenya.
So the point of my story, gentlemen, focus. Okay. Ednah, tell these people to focus.
All right. Okay. Let me ask something which is simple and easy to
I was
understand.
telling you about trade.
Do you guys have snakes?
Many, even human ones.
How do they bite?
We even have human snakes. I'm telling you, I've met a few. So what I was saying, we have very little tea in terms of what's grown, but we have millions of tea drinkers who want proper tea. Yes. The market alone that Kenya could get from just bringing that tea to Nigeria is unbelievable.
And then guess what Kenya needs? Nigerian oil. See?
Do you guys go coffee?
Oh, good Lord. Okay, just bring all, ask all now. Get it out of it.
We'll just leave it to the coffee.
We have cassava. We have big cassava.
And kola nut.
We have big cassava. I mean, go, Joe. Please, before we take a break, tell us what's on the nation and then tell us this guy's name.
Wow, I just thought of a gege bread, but let's continue.
We should do 1 hour. We should do 1 hour of do you have, do you not have, and do Kenya versus Nigeria. One day we'll do that. Sawa?
Yeah.
I was just asking.
Of course you were. I see you very fun. Nakuona what?
We have power.
They have generators.
Where? If you come for me,
which if you understand mathematics equals power. Yes.
If you come for me, I'll show you.
Guys. On the Daily Nation.
I'll deal with you properly. What do they call? Those
circumlocute.
Circumlocute.
Cautiously. Oh yeah.
Akupenda bure.
Sema tu.
Okay. Top security chiefs dance with politics. Now, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja's speech on one of President William Ruto's political rallies in the ongoing 12-month Kenya has triggered outrage over perceived dabbling in politics by security chiefs. We know LSK have asked the IG actually to either apologize or resign. And we also have the story of a bodyguard for all reasons. And here is George Odur. Yes, so the Daily Nation calls him Odur. City says Odiwur.
All over X was Odur.
Odur.
Even Raila Odinga called him Odur. Odiwur.
Okay, so it's Odiwur. Okay.
Odiwur.
Yes, inside many fights for control of City Hospital. On March 26th, Fred Kambuni became the second director to resign from the Nairobi Hospital's board in 3 months as the facility undergoes a vicious battle for control that has triggered many court cases. And Trump strokes global trade war with the tariffs. Now, yes, how the leaders should sit together and just trade. City, you said 1.2 billion.
Kenya, Africa?
1.3 billion. And a Kenyan woman seized in India with 270 million cocaine haul. Yes.
It means they didn't just start when they're being arrested.
Yeah.
Something they've been doing. It's now that, which means there's an alert that these Kenyans are doing this thing. Before they could get away because they were not perceived to be purveyors of this particular trade.
So that means in major airports across the country, a Kenyan,
or across the world actually,
is
being Kenyan, the flavor isn't good anymore.
Wacha tuangalie the traffic quickly, and then we'll come back and look at, because there's a lot of these stories, so let's get at them into some detail, and then we'll come back right after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start.
The fun never stops on Star Times this Easter and April school holidays. Get ready for non-stop adventure, laughter, and learning for big and little kids. Renew your subscription for 2 months and get a free upgrade to the next higher bouquet for 2 months. Dive into the best kids entertainment with Boing, Jim Jam, CBeebies, Toonami, Da Vinci, ST Tunes, and Cartoon. There's something for every little explorer. Buy a Star Times decoder at any of our business halls or dealers nationwide for endless fun, action, and discovery all holiday long. On the move? No problem. Download StarTimes on app and enjoy your favorite shows anytime, anywhere. Dial star 858# for self-service. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
The weather with SpiceFM.
conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16, highs of 27 and lows of 14 in a sunny Nakuru, and highs of 24 and lows of 15 in a partly sunny Nyeri. Eldoret is clear at 14, going to highs of 26, and it's cloudy at 25 in Mombasa, with partly sunny conditions at 26 in Malindi. It's clear at 20 in Kisumu and 19 and partly cloudy in Kakamega. Mostly cloudy at 21 in Kampala, while Dar es Salaam is cloudy at 25. It's cloudy at 14 in Johannesburg, while at 27 it is sunny in Mogadishu, 12 degrees and partly sunny in Addis Ababa, while Lagos is cloudy at 26. Partly cloudy at 23 in Kinshasa, with 18 and sunny conditions in Beijing. It's 18 and cloudy into Paris, with 9 degrees and cloudy in London. And it's 21 warming up in New York.
Spice up your life.
All right, so not much clicking at this point with traffic this morning. There is some traffic on the Thika Superhighway, but that's just past Survey as you get towards the Pangani underpass. We're not seeing much else anywhere else. Coming off the Northern Bypass, you'll be swiftly through towards Kiambu Road and then out towards Muthaiga Square. As you come in from Githurai, traffic, I don't know what happens on Friday. People don't go to work. Anyway, so there is not much also clicking on Uhuru Highway, and so we'll just watch out for that. The Southern Bypass looks pretty good, as it does on Langata Road. We're going to keep an eye open and see what happens. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so let's look at some of the details of the story. Look, and we had a femicide conversation last week, and then yet again yesterday at the Multimedia University, what did we see? That the body of a young woman was found, in a septic tank atop the roof, and it had been, sealed shut. So investigations have started and we don't know how long she'd been there, because, some of the residents said, they started to perceive a foul odor and they were not sure what happened. And then when they started to investigate, of course, the police came and all of this, and they found the body of this student in the septic tank. Yet another case. Investigations are going on. They are happening, guys. Let's look at some of these stories. I want to look at this one where the IG of police is being asked to apologize. You need to decide which side of the fence you are on. First of all, you decide if you want to be in the position of an independent officer or do you want to be a politician. So where did this all come from? Of course, we know that the president's visit to Central it was what was the highlight for this week. Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja is under fire for attending and addressing a political rally in Kieni in Nyeri on Tuesday. The Law Society of Kenya now wants Kanja to resign if he does not apologize for attending the rally. It argues that his actions violated the Constitution and warrant his removal from office. It's that serious. In a statement yesterday, LSK President Faith Odhiambo also stated that Kanja had violated laws that demand police officers be impartial. The Law Society of Kenya demands an immediate public apology by the Inspector General for his conduct yesterday, which is unbecoming of the position he holds. We equally demand that Mr. Kanja forthwith withdraws and restrains from engaging in any political mobilization, rallies and or discourse, especially in his official capacity as the Inspector General of Police. We believe that the Inspector General's work is cut out for him and is too demanding to allow such unpalatable sideshows, lapses in judgment and misplaced priorities. In the alternative, we invite Mr. Kanja to step aside from the position of Inspector General and allow the role to be occupied by an individual willing to serve all Kenyans without imposing their political biases on the people of Kenya. But in response, the National Police Service yesterday refuted the claims by LSK, reaffirming the IG's unwavering commitment in constitutional impartiality in serving all Kenyans devoid of political bias. The statement said Kanja's presence in the rally did not contravene the law, insisting that his office is at no time engaged in activities that undermine the neutrality of his office. Odhiambo, however, said that Kanja's actions could lead to the ostracization of parts of the population that hold alternate political views to those advanced by Mr. Kanja. So, Clad in official uniform, Kanja accepted an invitation to greet a crowd by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki during President William's ongoing tour of the Mount Kenya region, a first by a police boss. You've never seen it happen before. Are you happy to see our president here? Are you grateful? Yeah. Do you want him to come back again? We are still doing our work. Kanja said, speaking in Kikuyu. I'll repeat. This is what he said. Are you happy to see our president here?
Yeah.
Are you grateful?
Yeah.
Do you want him to come back again? Any. We are still doing our work. Kanja said. The lawyers' lobby took issue with the remarks, which they argued betrayed Kanja's bias. And they said, you cannot, it has never happened before. You could have declined the invitation to speak, and then the words that you spoke, you clearly said what you thought.
Yeah.
And on which side of the political divide you sit, which is unbecoming of an individual who occupies that particular seat. Sasa, the LSK is saying, come on, Uwezi, you can step aside and let somebody who's actually concerned to do the job. And don't you have so many things that you can be doing instead of attending a political rally in the first place? So the LSK says, no, unconstitutional, disorderly, unbecoming conduct. You should apologize to us, because you're basically telling us that you're not impartial, and that you don't have biases, that you have biases rather. So I don't know that they'll get the apology that is being sought, but it is a thing to wonder.
What I understand, do they quote any legal statutes that the IG has abrogated?
Yes. May I say to you, please?
Yes. Please.
Okay. Section 23(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. Let's start with 2. The lawyers took issue with the remarks, which they argued betrayed his bias, arguing that they contradicted Section 23(2) of the Leadership and Integrity Act, which prohibits state officers, I'm quoting, from engaging in political activities that may compromise or be seen to compromise the neutrality of the office. Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Section 23(3) particularly enjoins state officers from publicly indicating support for opposition against or political party or candidate. And according to what we can see, this is exactly what he did.
So what he said amounts to that?
Yes.
That's what they're saying.
Even if it didn't amount to, it should not be seen to be able to amount to.
So it was seen to be able to amount to.
Yes, and in some other quarters it also amounted to.
By whom?
The law is up for interpretation.
By the LSK.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is their opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't they take the matter to court?
See, let's apologize.
He said apologize, Ama, we will
don't apologize, then we will deal.
Apologize for what exactly?
Circumlocuciously.
That's fine. Apologize for what exactly?
For showing bias.
Yes.
How did he show bias exactly?
Because his office is supposed to be apolitical.
It is apolitical.
Yes.
Yeah, but then you should not come and support anybody in any political capacity in a public manner.
So what the IG said we are arguing, or it is being argued for us by the LSK, amounted to?
Yes.
Yes, because are you happy to see your president here? Yes. Do you want him to come back again? Yes. How will he come back again when he is re-elected as president?
No. He's come for this visit. He can come back tomorrow. Next month.
Okay.
Do you want him to come back? Are you grateful?
Yes.
You're grateful. We are still doing our work.
You see, I speak as somebody who does not understand the law, and I am not cognizant of these details that have been quoted in the Constitution.
Sasa our watu ambaye wame understand the law, wamesema it contravenes the Constitution.
They have said.
And
I have heard.
Okay. They want an apology.
Okay. Let's see whether it will be forthcoming.
Let's see.
Yes. Yes, please.
Tell us a story, yo.
I think we'll talk about the Kenyan woman who's arrested. Now, Kenyan has been arrested for reportedly attempting to smuggle cocaine valued at $2.1 million, approximately 270 million Kenya shillings, to India. Customs officials at Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Airport said, they arrested 43...
Is it just one airport? Is it several airports?
Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Airport arrested the 43-year-old Emily Kanini Roda on Tuesday. Now, she was detained upon landing at the airport in Mumbai. Ms. Rhoda's travel documents show she flew from Nairobi through Doha, Qatar. Customs officials said she raised suspicions because of her nervousness. During the examination of the trolley bag, the officers observed that it contained clothes and shoes. After removing the contents, the officers found the bag unusually heavy. On further examination, it was found that some synthetic material was affixed on the bottom. Reads the statement. Now, on removing the material, transparent plastic packets were found glued to the bottom of the trolley bag. The packets contained white powder, which tested positive for cocaine. We seized 1.78 kilograms of cocaine from the passenger. Now, Ms. Rhoda is said to have told the airport and customs officials that the packets were given to her in Nairobi by a woman called Millicent.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes,
so are you
she
done?
knew
Are you still reading
exactly.
The story?
She knew exactly the content, and she had been promised 100,000 shillings upon delivering the content to Miss Millicent's.
In India.
Yes, in India.
I have a question.
Because she was desperate for money.
You risk your life essentially for 100,000 bob.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
So when she left Nairobi, she knew that what she was carrying was drugs.
Yes.
And where she put it was clearly very easy to find.
Yes.
2.1 kilos.
Yeah.
How many did you say it was? 3 kilograms.
1.78 kilograms.
1.78 kilograms. That's a lot of drugs,
Yes.
right? But then what was the thinking that she would not be caught or that nobody would check her bag? I mean, what is it?
Because even the security officials at the airport say they picked up her nervousness, then proceeded to investigate
they
her.
pay attention.
Yes.
They pay attention to your moves. Because I imagine that there are many people who slip through because they're able to comport themselves properly. But if we can look at that side of it, I once talked to, just in case you don't know, and if the secret is out, I once talked to an airline crew, and they told me that they watch you, actually. If you're on a long-haul flight, for example, and you've slept through, and you're not unwell, they're going to start asking, they'll flag you. If you don't eat anything or you don't use the washroom on a long haul flight, they're going to flag you as well. Because they'll say, there's something wrong here. Or if you behave in a certain way, they've already sent a signal to the folks who are on the crew when you disembark. So I can see then that maybe they, checked and they noticed that maybe she was a bit nervous. But I wonder, in this day and age where the threat is so clear and present, why would you still do something like that with almost 2 kgs? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And what did you expect was going to happen? And then you do this for 100,000 shillings?
Yeah. She was to be given the money in New Delhi for delivery of the drugs to accomplices of Miss Millicent since she was in need of money, so she accepted the offer.
Yeah, they've been doing it. It's been happening. It's just that now a few people are getting caught.
Yeah.
It's been happening.
They don't understand the veracity of smuggling drugs.
Come on.
Because you're talking about, now this is another case, and this is just coming fresh off the Vietnam matter. That is still fresh and everyone is talking about it, begs to ask the question, don't we just love ourselves? Would you pay?
Why would you? But it's been happening. But you know what? That somebody has been caught. It has been happening and many have not been caught. That somebody has been caught, many are slipping through the cracks and are getting caught. But you guys, the absolute destruction that drugs causes on the lives of people, my goodness.
Yeah. There's the fentanyl matter that is now it's now a crisis across the world. Fentanyl, because it's
drugs laced with fentanyl. You hallucinate, people are in a stupor.
You walk in some places and a young man is just standing there, but he's not there.
Zube.
He's gone. There's no life behind their eyes. These are the things that are happening. But for me, I think it just drives me. You imagine the lives that are being destroyed with the intake of drugs, but now look at what happens to life when so desperate that you would do this for 100,000 bob. Now you're done. You're
done completely.
You're done.
Yeah, and when you talk about the effects of drugs, there's a certain documentary I was watching of a woman who uses drugs, was pregnant, and after she delivered, the child was suffering from now withdrawal symptoms because the child the baby had also been affected by the drugs.
Crazy.
So you find the child is shaking, and because they do not have cocaine in their system.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it's wider than what people think it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. On page 36 of The Nation, this one I have to read.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. grants Kenya $44 billion for critical health projects. This is amid the shutdown.
Yeah. There's still some money coming.
44 billion wired means it's been received.
Okay.
Okay. But there's a list. The Nation has listed facilities that received the 44 billion amid U.S. aid shutdown. Program for appropriate technology in health.
Mm-hmm.
They received a lot of money. In amount in dollars, $58.1 million. LVCT Health, $47 million. Deloitte and Touche LLP, $40 million. Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, $39.4 million. Mission for Essential Drug Supplies, $29.2. Amref Health Africa, $27.6 million. Moi University College and Health Health Sciences, $24.8 million. Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Bungoma and Busia, $22.6 million. Christian Health Association of Kenya, $19.9 million. TechnoServe, $16.5 million. Center for Health Solutions Kenya, $10 million. St. John's Community Center Pumwani, $7 million. Right. So it amounts to $343,940 million, amount in Kenya shillings, 44.454 billion Kenya shillings.
So there's still support.
Yes.
There's still support, and it will come. What it's meant to do it's meant to do, having been listed there, it'll be interesting to see if it's actually done.
That is always the question, isn't it?
Yes.
Because the same question we ask of counties is the same question one should ask about the monies that the American people have given through the agencies to the country for the longest time.
Exactly.
Whether one can visibly see what it is the money has done.
Yeah.
When it comes to reducing the impact of HIV, clear.
It's clear. It did. That's clear. Absolutely. It did.
There's no question, there's no ifs and buts about it. But other areas of support, other health areas of support, one would require perhaps more details as to how it is it has impacted. Because remember, when in a President Uhuru's time, when there was a 5 billion shilling scandal, these monies that the Auditor General talks about, where one can't see exactly where they went, there was such a case. And it brought about the departure or the suspension of literally all the procurement people within the system.
Yes.
Okay? That's what happened. The saga was never really concluded. So if 5 billion can just
disappear
in smoke,
even this one can.
Yes, it can.
It can.
Where? You guys, let me tell you the story of this young woman who was found. So, sorry, not a septic tank, because, others have been found in septic tanks. Yes, there was a water tank on the roof. So that was just a correction there. Police in Langata Sub-County have launched investigations into the mysterious death of a first-year student at Multimedia University, whose body was discovered in a water tank within the campus premise. The victim, identified as Sylvia Kemunto, had been missing since Sunday before her lifeless body was found last evening. According to Nairobi County Police Commander George Seda, officers were alerted by students after the shocking discovery. We received a report that the body of a young lady had been inside a water tank within the institution. Investigations are ongoing. Authorities have since launched a manhunt for the deceased's boyfriend, who is currently missing. Witnesses claim he was the last person seen leaving Kemunto's room at Block E within the university. Her body has been moved to the city mortuary, where an autopsy will be conducted to establish the cause of death. Meanwhile, of course, the university has called for calm among students, and they've said that they've described the incident as a wake-up call to address gender-based violence and toxic masculinity. We must confront the reality of gender-based violence and create a culture that respects and protects our women, according to the statement and how it was read. The student leaders have also planned a prayer session and sensitization program to raise awareness on safety and non-violence. It is another number. And From the details, one would assume that this is a femicide case. And the question is, how many more? How many more? How many more?
Yeah.
And we can't stop talking about it. We have to bring these issues up. It's coming to Friday. And from the 18th of January, Brian Odhiambo was missing. We're now on the 4th of April. He has been missing now for 2 months and 18 days. They don't know where he is. No one has said yet in terms of whether he's dead or alive. His wife and children still wait every day for him to come home. What is happening to those who've gone missing? Who will hear, and where will justice come from? We'll say their names. Brian Odhiambo, Mukuria. We'll say their names. Kemunto. We'll continue to say their names. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah. Obaga fake medical practitioners and operators of fake facilities now face a jail term or hefty fines once new digital health regulations come into force. Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale says the new regulations will streamline services within the health sector.
This system further will root out all fake health facilities. The health facilities must be registered by a regulatory body within the Ministry of Health. We will know when a doctor is in his place. Right now, we don't know. You know, a doctor is in a facility. A doctor, if he doesn't pay his registration license fee, the system will lock him out.
Duale said the registry system will, for all practitioners, have certified personal details, qualification details, regulatory body that licensed the health worker, and valid practice licenses.
If you are treated by a quack, like the famous Dr. Muga, if you are treated by a quack, the moment you go for payment, the system will tell you you will not be paid. SHA will not pay. Why? The person who treated you is not a qualified clinician, is not a qualified medical doctor, is not a registered nurse.
Data in the Ministry of Health shows cases where the medical space has been infiltrated by fake practitioners, with some even setting up bogus medical facilities to con unsuspecting patients while endangering their lives. Billionaire Tob Cohen's murder trial is set to resume today. Yesterday, a protected witness testified before the Kibra Magistrates Court. In her submission before the witness began giving her evidence, prime suspect Sarah Wairimu promised to appeal the decision to reopen the case that was dismissed by the former Director of Public Prosecutions, Nudin Haji. Wairimu, who was arrested on January 23rd this year, was denied bail by the Kibra Magistrates Court until two key witnesses testify.
We cannot separate this trial from the initial criminal case 60 of 2019 and from the inquest. All these facts must flow together. We shall be able to demonstrate that this is not a fresh suit. This is not a fresh trial. In that respect, at the appropriate time, we shall bring in proceedings to challenge the manner of which this trial has been reopened after the prosecution terminated the initial trial by entering an nolle prosequi.
Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja has stressed the need for officers to serve in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Speaking during his visit to Laikipia County Police Headquarters, Kanja said law-abiding service will reduce public complaints against the police officers. Kanja also commended the officers for their dedication to the public service and reiterated the commitment of the National Police Service to improve its well-being, especially in terms of mental health.
We are going to have many trainings that are going to happen to ensure that our officers are brought up to date, to ensure that they deliver that mandate of ensuring that any person who commits a crime in the Republic of Kenya, regardless of the status of his life, must be dealt with as guided by the law. So if one of our officers have decided to misuse his firearm, then that is how he is going to be dealt with.
And finally, Body by Design clinics proprietors and a doctor will remain in remand for 2 weeks after their bond ruling was delayed to April 15th. Sergeant Robert Mutula, along with Omnicare Medical Limited owners George Njoroge and Lillian Ednah Wanjiru, face manslaughter charges. The suspects appeared before Senior Principal Magistrate Samson Timu for their bail and bond release, ruling only for the magistrate to say that he needs a probation report to enable him arrive at a reasonable decision. Medical reports indicate that she passed away due to complications reportedly stemming from cosmetic procedures performed at the facility. For the hard-hitting, bold and stimulating discussions, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, won't deal with too much in terms of traffic this morning. Let's take a quick look at what's coming off of Kiambu Road now. Coming off the Northern Bypass and getting towards Kiambu Road, that is busy. And on to the Thika Superhighway, we're seeing traffic just from Survey through towards the Pangani Underpass. Coming in from Githurai, will be fine all the way down towards that area. And then also as you come in from that Kahawa West area through towards the Northern Bypass, that looks good as well. You're coming off of Ngong Road without an issue, Langata Road as well, and even from Magadi Road, which usually on a Friday is busy. We've not started to see that just yet, but we probably will in a short while. We're going to keep an eye on all of this. We'll talk and keep things moving. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. Don't just spend, earn while at it. The I&M Bank Milele Rewards makes every swipe count. Earn every point on every purchase and redeem them for flights, shopping and more. Plus, every 20th customer to get the card gets 50,000 Milele Reward points worth 50,000 shillings.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning at 7 minutes after 7 o'clock. Our audience on KTN home. On KT, why do I keep saying home? It's force of habit. It's force of habit. But our audience on KTN is here at this hour and getting into conversations this morning. Our live streams are also up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X, and on radio around the country, into the region, and indeed around the world. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into its second hour this Friday, the 4th of April. And things have been happening around the mountain. We keep saying, CT, there's a song for everything. We going around the mountain when she comes. In this case, when he comes. But anyway, while you are here, you tell us how we can spend and earn at the same time, even as we get into those conversations this hour.
It's not really very complicated. The people want and work for money, and in working for it, it is to meet certain needs.
Yeah.
And the process of meeting those needs involves spending. Mm-hmm. In this modern day and age, we don't just spend by carrying or moving around with wheelbarrow loads of money. We put that money in a card of some sorts, or we put it in a bank account which the card represents. Now, I and them are saying, look, we want to give you something with a difference. We want you to spend and earn at the same time.
Yeah.
So they've come up with something they call the World Credit MasterCard. This World Credit MasterCards enables you to earn points which they call Milele points. Okay? Now, to register for this card, all you need to go is to go to the I&M on the Go platform. I&M on the Go platform. Mm-hmm. Okay? Once you've registered, let me list the things that will happen. Okay. One, every time you spend, you get Milele points. The same Milele points that you get are Milele points that you can use to do the things you're doing with the money in the first place that made you earn the Milele points. If you happen to be the 20th a client who has registered, you will then get 50,000 Milele points. The 50,000 Milele points equals 50,000 Kenya shillings, meaning 1 Milele point equals 1 Kenya shilling. Okay?
Okay.
So, I think it's straightforward, isn't it?
Go, register, card, spend, earn.
And yes, it's a lovely cycle,
isn't it? And you just keep
spend,
going
you
on.
earn, you spend, you earn, you earn, you spend, you spend, you earn. I mean, surely there's a rhythm to it.
I know.
Yes,
it's great, and we continue getting information about that. All right, we're going to go into a conversation this hour, and our guest is seated in the hot seat of the Situation Room. Alex Marvey is a political analyst, and is here this morning. Alex, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. What a pleasure.
Wow.
What a pleasure. I feel honored to be here this morning.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. You usually have folks who are helping us on in these conversations that we have. And we're looking right this morning around the President's Mount Kenya tour, and that what essentially will happen, or what has happened, and what it then means when we look at certain things happening in the country. Very quickly, though, by way of welcome, let's tell you what today's proverb is. CT will let you know where that comes from, and then you can interpret that for us today.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the Comoros. It's an archipelago. An archipelago is just an extensive group of islands. We have one in Lamu County. Lamu, as we know it, is precisely that. Yes, it's part of that archipelago. This particular country got its independence in 1975, 6th July. And the thing that makes it stand out, apart from being an island nation, is that it has had 20 coups and coup attempts in that time. Now, that doesn't make for stability or peace, but it seems to reflect on the history of this continent, and an explanation as to why this continent probably doesn't move in leaps and bounds as it could. Because whenever you have a coup, it's a disturbance. Before it settles down, there's another one.
Yeah.
Anyway, the proverb. A whistle will not call back a dog that has escaped from the leash. I'll repeat that. A whistle will not call back a dog that has escaped from the leash.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. Repeat. A whistle will not call back a dog that have escaped
from. Yes, a leash. Anyone who's owned a dog will know.
Yeah.
You can actually. The dog gets used to a certain whistle, it will know it's being called back, and it will come back, yes.
The dog that has escaped has gone away. So it's made a decision to move on with its own life. And meaning that in political terms, while we know politics is a game of musical chairs, you keep shifting from one to the other. And they're not real enemies, no permanent friends. But once there's a point at which someone has to move out. And when he moves out, it doesn't matter what effort you put to get him back, you'll not get him back.
Okay, then. Yeah. I must say, I love the political connection, because it goes directly into what we'll be talking about today. Points, how many are you giving him? 1 million, CT?
Now, if this was an exam, this man would have actually passed the exam he sat for the next one.
Oh.
I thought it would be first class honors. That's what they used to call it, or distinction.
What I've just given you goes beyond the first class honor.
Even beyond that. So, the president began a tour of the Mount Kenya region and got into things proper Monday afternoon into Tuesday. He was at Sagana State Lodge, and that's when the intrigues actually then started to unfold, and we saw them into reality in terms of what the crowds were saying, in terms of what the reception was. But then we saw that then develop into when his generals, essentially, we call them lieutenants of loyalty, because that's essentially who they are. And the words in which they spoke, or the reception that they received from the crowds, was a bit frosty. And we then saw different things happening. Of course, there were promises that were made, which was to be expected. But then the question that we're asking is, all right, so the Mount Kenya tour is coming to an end. He's going to extend that by just a little time, because he felt that the reception that he received was very warm. What does this all mean, and why does it all matter, Alex?
It matters most because this is not about development. This is about campaigning. This is about election. This is about 2027. And if you remember, in 2022, Ruto got, I think, about 2.9 million votes out of the total, about 40% of his votes from Mount Kenya region. So obviously, it reaches a point when you realize that irrespective of whatever is happening, I need these votes to come back. And that's why he went there to seduce. And let me say this, that the game of politics is about perception, persuasion, and power. So the end game for politics is power. And he has to go there and create perception that he's still acceptable to the mountain, irrespective of the facts that are happening on the ground. Because also, politics you also know that politics is a game of deceit. So you create a perception that you're welcome. The sad thing for him was, especially yesterday in Nyandarua, where his lieutenants were heckled and booed.
Yeah.
So for that must have pulled him back a little bit. But you notice he put a strong face forward, because in politics you don't fear anything. You go in, you claim something, and you don't say what you mean. You don't say what you mean. And you don't mean what you say. So basically, it's to create a perception, and the perception you want to create that he's accepted by the people. And I'll tell you what, in the last 5 years with Uhuru Kenyatta, Ruto visited Mount Kenya region many times, and I will give you a number, City, that in Murang'a County, it's estimated he visited 960 times.
900.
Yes, 960 times.
When?
In the last 5 years of his campaign, because for him he's a long-term politician who creates his strategy long term.
Who sat down and counted that he has come 1, 2, 3,
there are people
4
who have done that.
to 900?
It isn't difficult, really.
There are people who have done that, and to an extent that when you heard him saying that Barabara itatoka waje, Barabara itaenda wapi, he was to do that for Murang'a. He would talk about each and every single village. He went round completely, and that's what endeared the people there. So for me, this mountain visit for him is to start that process again.
So loyalty doesn't live beyond the years?
He will be back. He will be back. And he will seduce the people of Murima. And in his mind, he thinks they will crack at some point.
But Mati, even as the president is making forays into the mountain, trying to seduce those who gave him the votes, but we're also seeing his lieutenants on ground, people you would say are helping bring these votes to him, being booed, being flagged out by the people. Isn't this sending a communication that things are not good? Kwa ground mambo ni different. People would come because at the end of the day, Kenyans as well just want to see the president. But will that really translate to votes, is the question.
When you talk about seduction, you'll always think about a woman. And when she says no once, City, do you run away? Or you go back and try to convince her again and again and again? What I expect to see is that as far as for example, after yesterday's booing in Nyandarua, the next stop, these people do not speak. Meaning intentionally he pulled them back. It's like pulling, remember, City talking about a dog, pulling back your dogs so that now you can be able to be the one visible. When we went to Murang'a, the people that were there were Kina Maua, who were on the other side. You went to Nyeri, there was, you remember there is Kahiga, although he turned around and said,
exactly,
look, I was going to collect my money. The money has come, so why would I refuse to collect? The bottom line is, this sets up his mind on what to do in the next tour. Nothing to do with development, everything to do with 2027, and the idea is to crack again. He is not ignorant to the fact that the so-called Murima, and one of the dangers that we do is to generalize people, that Murima has said no to him. So his job is to try and endear himself to them as time goes by.
Do you believe, Alex, that the minds of people have been altered in any way because of this journey or this tour? And I'm talking about the people that he went to see.
You obviously have been listening to clips on social media, You've been listening to leaders speak. This first hit has not yet caused any change. To an extent, people are still at the point where they were. You come and bring us food. You had Senator Meadow saying that we're very happy about the 2,000 that you gave. You gave us so that we can listen to the president, not listen to the rest. It's on social media. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. It's just that when you hear it again, you think this is the actuality.
You told them
of
the reason people heckled you guys is because you didn't pay for us to listen to you. We were paid 2,000 shillings to listen to the president himself. Meaning that he was saying that the citizens were given money. So, point is, with the first hit, it hasn't shifted the ground much. But him being a strategist and a politician who wants to believe that he can change any situation, he will try again. And you try, you win or you fail.
Is it possible that he could be deceived by the people? That the people could, you know how it is when somebody is in your space for that minute, you could give them the welcome that whatever it is that you're going to do. But in your heart of hearts, you could be thinking something else. From the point of view of the people, do you think there's loyalty to bring William Ruto back and give him those 2.9, if not more votes again?
For him to come to the mountain this time, he didn't need the people's approval. Because it was to wait for people to approve him, people have rejected. And this is based on obvious the leadership, the I don't know whether you watched some clips from was it like Kipians, people being interviewed that we were forced to close our businesses. We went and we listened, and we came back. So there are two sides to this. There is him as an individual who wants to rule a second term.
Okay.
And he must work towards getting the votes that will take him back to the seat. There is a reality on the ground that the people on the ground are grumbling, both because of the way they think they've been treated and all that. And his job as a politician is to try to change their minds towards that. As to whether you'll succeed, that's a difficult one. But one thing is definite, that I'm sure you've heard this, that people keep saying that one of the things that the people from the mountain hate is to be what you call to be betrayed. That they don't forgive you. Quietly, they don't forgive you. But also you must remember that from Murima, there is a saying that says, a proverb that says that Muganine Rowe, meaning a visitor is a river. Meaning that in the home states, you welcome any visitor.
They're just passing through.
They're just passing through. Give him some water, give him some food you have, they will go away. Don't fret about it. Don't be emotional about it. Don't think about it. And I think this is a case where I listen a lot of people saying that he came, we listened to him, he's gone.
Yeah.
We remain where we were from the word go. So meaning that it will take time to turn around the general feeling in the area.
Let me ask this question. Is Uhuru Kenyatta still influential in the mountain?
That's a good question. I would say no. In terms of people looking at leadership, the so-called Muthegi, he's still the one who holds it. Nobody else has taken it away from him. But he didn't do, the perception is that he didn't do very well for the mountain. And unfortunately, human beings work in a way where, if you are not my friend, I must create. If you're going to be my friend and you have an enemy, then your enemy becomes my enemy. Meaning that now that this guy that we were all holding on to have come up and we don't think that he's doing what he's supposed to be, where do we look at? And that's why you've seen a lot of going back to Uhuru Kenyatta and people wanting him to be able to comment, to give a guidance of the way forward. So it's a catch-22.
So he's not completely...
He's not completely gone.
And influential.
Yes, not completely.
Because if people keep going to him, then it implies there's something they believe he can do.
Yes, and they will only listen to him if they have no alternative. Like when they were, if you ask me, ditched from this other side, they were left with who do we turn to?
Correct.
Of course, Gachagua was there, but this guy had more influence, so they turn towards him. If they get alternative, then you not.
So let me ask the question then: how influential is Gachagua?
Good question. He was available when there was a fallout. He was available when Mount Kenya people were falling apart from the government. So he became, a post to hold on to. But if you ask deeply, there's no alternative as of now. And that's the problem of Mount Kenya.
So are you saying that the immediate former deputy president is not an alternative?
Even by law.
The law won't allow him.
The law won't allow him.
No, the law.
In terms of influencing, yeah?
Yes, the law cannot prevent you from being influential.
Influential, yes.
The unfortunate thing that has happened is that there hasn't been a clear alternative to William Ruto in central Kenya, in Mount Kenya region. And election being in 2 years' time looks like a very short time to be able to do anything to create an alternative.
So let me ask my final question along this the chain that I followed of asking questions. Is it possible for the mountain to vote for Raila Odinga? That's a good question.
Very good question.
Yes.
If he can get Lieutenant to sell him,
yes,
he'll be an alternative. And I want to take you back to 1992, when, if you remember when the election happened, and Joseph Kamodo said that if a dog vied against Kanu, the people would elect the dog. That's a position that we don't want you. But 2 years is a long time, to be able for him to be able to try and do something.
Alex, you've said something that I need to then take a few steps back and ask, is that you said that when the people of the mountain fell apart from the government, that it was Rigathi Gachagua who essentially was the stitch that brought things back together. On what premise did the people of the mountain fall apart from the government? What happened that was going to be the straw that broke the camel's back?
There was... because you've been journalists, there's been a lot of, during the campaign, there was a lot of promises that were made. And if you remember that, including this business of shareholding in terms of appointment, in terms of whatever, what happened is that quickly people realized that was not happening. Because people want their own to be appointed. People want their own to be upgraded or whatever. That did not happen at the beginning. And people started complaining slowly by slowly. So when Gachagua happened, it was the camel, what do you call it?
The straw that broke the camel's back. So Gachagua's impeachment, essentially, is what then would break the romance between government and the people of the mountain. So what would be the thing, in your opinion, that would essentially bring them back together? A visit to is a visit to the region enough to come back and say, actually, I am still in the position? So is this tour enough, essentially, to have the mountain and the government make up?
One tour will not be enough. Because the Mount Kenya people would want to see, just like everybody else in this country, would like to see an influence of the government in changing their lives. That's not happening. And they have pertinent issues that they have been talking about. They've been talking about their tea farmers, their coffee farmers. They need to see a real change in that. So if this visit is only about rhetoric, it will not happen again. Because remember during the campaign, Ruto had the government of the day, Uhuru Kenyatta, that he used to castigate in terms of not doing ABCD, that I'm coming and do. Now people are saying, hey, hold on, you're the one in power. You can't blame anybody else. What are you going to do about it? So the only thing that can change the people's minds is if they see action to the things that they've been complaining about. And they're there.
So it doesn't matter who it is?
It doesn't matter who it is,
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have the presence of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. We have the immediate former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and the current Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, who is being peddled to be the spokesperson of the mountain, or the person who's holding the mantle and should have that needle to stitch the mountain back together. His presence in this government, does it have any effect to the support of the people of the mountain to the president?
No, it doesn't have. It's an obvious thing that this is an appointed person picked from wherever and propped up as a spokesman for the. You remember, for Dr. Ruto to be able to be president of the Republic of Kenya, he did a lot of groundwork over many years. Now, you don't become a leader of an area just by being propped up. And that was the question that Ndo was asking me about Gachagua. He was also propped up. He didn't do any groundwork to become a leader. He was propped up. And he was loved by the people at the last moment because he became a reflection of the fact that government was against the people or was working against the people. So that's why he's been propped up as a leader. Kindiki doesn't have that at all.
When the president was the deputy president was going against former President Uhuru Kenyatta, there was the talk that he is not working for the people of the mountain. You know what I mean? And there is development that was taken to other places. The same has been said about President William Ruto.
Yeah.
Right now, he does not have lieutenants who are speaking for him. How does he then get back the mountain without lieutenants who are speaking for himself at the ground?
He thinks that by
can an outsider pretty much just take the mountain without people on the ground?
No, you can't. You can't. But remember, his strategy was very simple. He picked Kimani Ichung'wah in Kiambu. He picked our friend in Nyoro in Murang'a. He picked, give me a name. In every county, he had someone who was his point man. And Ruto was very strategic at that moment. Because when he brought them together around a table, he went to Murang'a, we know his point man was Irungo Kangata and Dindi Nyoro. Kiambu was Kimani Ichung'wah. In Kirinyaga, he had the current governor of Kirinyaga. That he has to create again if he's going to have an impact. That he has to create again. And that's why he's trying to prop up and see whether he can create Kindiki to be the one that will create a team that works for him.
Let's take a break, but I want to ask you a question before we do that. And this mountain phenomena that we've been talking about for the longest time, we're looking at a numbers issue here. And then we're connecting that numbers issue to the fact that the people of the mountain, surprise, surprise, just want what everybody else in Kenya wants. It is not different. It is not magical. It is not mysterious. People want development brought to their doorstep. People want the things that you said you were going to do as a government done for them. They're not any more special because they come from around the mountain. Or are we saying that it is different? People just, it doesn't matter who you are, just do it and do it right. It would be better if you were from us, but if you're not, it's okay. Just do the things that you're supposed to do for us.
Exactly. And that's why they voted for Ruto in 2022. But you must remember one phenomenon that has happened in this country. When you go to Nyanza and you want to talk to Nyanza, you know you got to talk to Raila Odinga. No question. If you want to go to Eastern, Lower Eastern, you know you have to talk to Kalonzo Musyoka. When you go to Western, of course, that now has become very tricky.
There are a number of them.
It has become very tricky because
a truly democratic region.
The Western region.
I don't think Otori doesn't seem to have. He has the mouth and the whatever, but doesn't have the influence on the ground. But you have Wetangula, you have Musa Mudavadi. You can't ignore them. And then now you have a new kid on the block, Natembea. You've got to talk to them so that you can be able to do that. When you come to Murima, there is no one really.
Right now.
Yes, right now.
And perhaps that could be the issue.
No. And that's why Gachagua is coming, having fallen out and said that I fell out with him because I fought my people for my people. So my people support me. Then there's Uhuru who has the Muthegi. He still has the leadership staff for lack of better words, for the Kikuyu fraternity. He still has that Muthegi. So, but there's no one that seems to have that power to be able to move people together into a certain direction. And that's why he's trying his own to come in.
I want us to delve into that when we come after the break.
We shall delve properly. It is now 27 minutes to 8 o'clock, having a conversation around the president's Mount Kenya tour, what it means. We'll do some delving when we come back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions, partly sunny in Nairobi, 17 degrees. It's 14 and sunny into Nakuru with 15 and sunny in Nyeri. Sunny at 17 into Eldoret, while Mombasa at 26 is cloudy. And light rain showers now into Malindi at 27. Partly sunny at 21 in Kisumu, while Kakamega is sunny at 19. And Kampala is cloudy at 21, with Dar es Salaam mostly cloudy at 24. Cloudy at 14 into Johannesburg, while it is sunny at 28 in Mogadishu. Sunny at 13 into Addis Ababa, while Lagos is clear at 26. Kinshasa is cloudy at 23.
Online, mobile, and on radio. www.spiceradio.co.ke.
All right, Friday morning, not too crazy on these streets, but let's take a quick look at what could be happening where you are. On the Thika Superhighway, we're just seeing some traffic that's coming in. Then from Outer Ring, it's actually outbound and inbound traffic right around Outer Ring coming through towards Allsops. And then you get towards Survey and things are going to slow down just a little bit with that bumper-to-bumper traffic that heads because your service lanes come to an end. On Muthaiga, around Muthaiga Square, there's traffic coming in from Kiambu Road, and it's also starting to build on Limuru Road coming in through Muthaiga, all of this coming in from United Nations Avenue. On Gong Road, we're looking okay, as well as on parts of Langata Road, so that doesn't look too bad. Jago Road going towards Landis is actually very, very busy, bumper to bumper on Landis as you get out towards the Kamkunchi roundabout, and there is traffic coming in on the Eastern Bypass going towards North Airport Road and on through towards Outer Ring. We're keeping an eye on all of this as we're stepping into traffic hour. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
24 minutes to 8 o'clock. And Alex Mother is our guest this hour, and we're looking at the president's tour to the mountain. So, as is human nature, we tend to go with the underdog, or we tend to go with the victim. When somebody comes out and says, you know, well, I've gotten the short end of the stick, and you want to accommodate their opinions, you want to hear what it is that they had to say. Would Gachagua play his role as the underdog, as the victim? And could the counter effect then be what President William Ruto is doing? If he went to Muranga 960 times when he was the deputy president, and he feels that, you know what, there is the potential for Rigathi Gachagua to then put through his influences that could affect numbers that would vote for me, then I definitely have to set up camp in central Kenya.
100%. You remember when the Gachagua met the other group of other leaders to craft together some coalition of sorts. One of the things that happened is that the president went somewhere and said that you've talked to me, how can you pretend you're forming some organization when you spend 4 hours talking about me? The reaction was very swift. That the meeting was not 4 hours, first of all, and even if you talk to you about you for 4 hours, you've been talking about me for 6 days. Meaning, in politics, you must find the person that you need to bring down. And in this case, for Mount Kenya, Gachagua seems to look like the alternative for leadership in Mount Kenya, because after that, when he was impeached, then he became the fall guy, and the people looked at him as a sort of alternative. If you remember also, during his altercations with Ruto while he was in government, he kept talking about Murima. So he became, and that's why one of the items that the senators and whoever said was that he was tribal because he kept talking about Murima. He was trying to craft a position for himself. And that's why Ruto must come in now. And you've noticed even in this trip, he keeps talking about him. Yule mtu, telling people, wanting to dissuade people from listening to him. On the other hand, if you listen to every speech that Gachagua gives anywhere he goes, whether he's in church or he's in a meeting or wherever, you notice that he always looks for faults in the government. And now, as a man who was inside the government, speaks from a position of knowledge, of knowing what was happening in government, and hence this is the truth. I know this as the truth. So he was trying to pull the president down, but the president also must try to fight him back.
But
in so doing, isn't he sort of skirting on some fairly thin ice? I mean, if you're deputy president, there are very many things you're privy to. And some of these things you're privy to are not really meant for public consumption. So if you start talking about things that perhaps were things that you knew by virtue of your position, and you also knew that by virtue of your position, they were not for public consumption. So does that not speak of desperation? A need to do anything and everything to position yourself in a certain way?
Politics is a game of desperation. In that, you pick whatever that you can. That's why Hitler would tell people to kill Jews so that he can remain in leadership. It's a game of desperation. And when you don't have a point to make, then you make desperate moves. He's being careful in terms of the information that he lets out. But if he goes on, of course, it's a very thin ice. He will let out information that was not meant to be let out. But what do people want? Because masses only listen and believe whatever they hear. Perception is reality for them.
You're saying the masses don't analyze what they hear?
Yes, masses don't. Masses don't. Masses don't.
Let's talk about...
Can I give you an example?
Okay.
The masses were told we'll do what you call affordable housing. What do they do? Hey!
Did they though?
Yes, during the campaign. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
In that moment, when these declarations are being made, the crowds of people who are listening to these promises,
excited.
At that point, they're not taking it apart and saying, how is this going to happen?
Thank you.
They're just saying, oh, this is fantastic. You see a house in a row of other houses and you think one of those will be mine.
Will be mine.
And that's why I say that politics is a game of perception. Using that perception to persuade. And when you persuade people, then you get power.
So
it's 3 steps.
So, Alex, it's been said one of the reasons why the mountain finds itself in a difficult position right now is because even the former Deputy President Gachagua said, we got into this union without a vehicle that is predominantly from the mountain. We got into this union without a political party. And he's mentioned in various communications that he will announce a new political vehicle for the mountain and whatnot. Will that change anything as we get towards 2027? Does the people of the mountain say this is our vehicle that we want to go with as we move forward? So anyone who's coming to the mountain must find how they will speak with this vehicle that is predominantly ours.
In talking about a vehicle, remember what he's trying to do. He's trying to do what I've mentioned a little bit earlier, that when you go to Nyanza, you know, is ODM. When you go to Western Kenya, now ANC is gone, right?
Wow.
For
all intents and purposes.
Is the others, and when you go to Lower Eastern, is Wiper. And then you go to Coast, of course, ODM still. So he's creating a situation where if we have a vehicle that is Mount Kenya, then we can choose one leader who will lead us. That's what he's saying. And he's, of course, suggesting that I am the one who will form the party. I am the one who will be the leader of Mount Kenya. It should not be forgotten that the people did not go to UDA because of lack of parties. We have, I think, more parties in Mount Kenya region than any other region. Each person has his own, each of these leaders have a briefcase party. Kinjuri has his own, Mother has her own. The guy who was sacked the other day, Rongo Nyakera, has his own. You said Lain Muturi has his own. So we have enough parties. But what he was saying basically is that this vehicle that I will show you will be the best. Meaning what? I'll be the leader.
How is Muturi's being fired from cabinet making the president's work either difficult or easy at the mountain?
He should make it difficult because.
But is it?
It isn't. It isn't. It should. I used the word. It should be. It should be. But remember what I said. Muga nini Roy. So welcome him, listen to him, let him go. That might make you feel that people are really listening to you.
So let me put it this way.
Yeah.
This so-called bromance that existed and which people who are given to perspectives have said was broken with Gachagua's impeachment. Would you say that this and whatever has taken place thereafter has woken up the mountain, the masses, to now start looking at issues a little more critically than they've done before?
If you ask my honest opinion,
no.
My study of people,
no.
No. The point is, hasn't it happened before?
When did it happen before?
In 2007, there was an election.
Yes.
And Ruto was on the other side.
Yes, he was.
And the mountain was on this side.
Yes.
And there was a whole lot of fighting. And you remember the reports that came through about the atrocities that were done under his watch.
Yes.
In 2013, hardly 5 years after, the mountain changed and said, oh, this was brought by our son, let's support him. And they said specifically that yake kumi, the mountain.
All right. But consider, for instance, are you saying that the people who originally were from the mountain, who are now Rift Valleyans, are the same as the people who are in Central? Do you think the people of the mountain felt the same pain and turmoil and distress that the people who were in Rift Valley felt? Do you think they perceive this issue of 2007 the same?
There's a slight difference, because when the knife is cutting you, you feel more pain than the person who now emotionally feels on your behalf. But the bottom line is, even them, they felt it because they have relatives there. So if your relative is hurt, you also hurt. You also injured.
Sure, you feel it.
So you feel it. You don't feel exactly the same because the knife is not cutting you, but you feel as much.
Yeah.
So the emotional feeling was there, my brother.
Okay.
It was there.
Why did 2.9 million people from the mountain vote for William Ruto? Why? In the last election.
Another very good question. Because he went to them and told them what he can do for them. And he did it with so much vigor, so much energy, so many times that they believed him.
Okay. So if that
100%.
Okay. So if that's the case,
yes.
And if that's the reason why they voted for him, then if he's doing the same thing now, it would not stop them from voting for him again, regardless of the fact that he broke up with their person from the mountain.
If he can convince them again, seduction is about repeating the issue and convincing the person that I have changed. You've had a relationship where people disagree, and then after some time they talk to each other and they come together. I don't know that you saw yesterday or day before yesterday a very sad case where a young couple had separated. Somehow they agreed, and the first night together again, some very dangerous thing happened. The girl was killed. The bottom line is the art of seduction is so that you keep convincing people of the things that you think they will listen and they will hear you, that you can do them.
Okay.
He was convincing then because he took a narrative, this so-called hustler narrative, and pretended to be one of them in terms of being a hustler. Because a hustler is somebody who is struggling to make ends meet.
Yes.
When you're a billionaire, then you're not a hustler, really, because you already made it. But he was able to create a story where he came to their level and agreed with them. And they believed him.
Okay.
If he can do that again on another note in the next 2 years, we'll sit here and I'll tell you they'll vote for him.
They'll vote for him. So the last question in this series of questions. So is there unification then at the mountain on this thing that you're saying? Is everybody thinking along those lines, or are they divided whereby there is you coming to us to tell us what you will do politically and why we should give you our vote again in 2027, or actually you coming but we still feel rather slighted because you broke up with our person? Is there unification or is there division from a mountain point of view?
The mountain people are not the one who welcomed him. They are not the ones who told him to come. So they are not thinking about what you're thinking. He's come. We want to hear what he's saying.
He's the visitor.
He's a visitor.
He's the river.
He's the one who comes. A visitor is one who comes with news.
So who has problems then? Who has the problems that are being amplified to the point whereby you would think there's division, or you would think that there is no welcome? Because if you're saying that the people generally don't have an issue, then the people who may be bringing any kind of dissent are in the minority.
Please, I didn't say that the people are not in disagreement. I didn't say that. In this area, people have been talking, have been saying it publicly, that we don't want him.
Yeah.
He is the president of the Republic of Kenya and has a right to go everywhere. So by his coming is not an invitation. After we know each other, City, I will invite you to my house so that we can have a cup of tea, right? It's different from you come into my house and say, I would like to have a cup of coffee here. It's different.
So
totally different. They didn't agree for him to come. No. He went there because he's a president. He is responsible for that part of the country. There are development projects that he's supposed to be launching.
There, they'll just welcome him.
They'll just welcome him, yes.
Okay, Alex.
But his job is to make sure he comes as often as possible, promising the same things, so that the mind changes from, he came, to yes.
So there's no division. Okay. Sorry. So there's no division, Alex?
Between the people?
Yes.
No.
Amongst the people.
Amongst
in
the
terms
people, no.
of the position that they're going to take politically.
There's no division. There's no division.
Alex, so in these, let's go back to 2017 after the elections. A little bit later, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta shake hands. And the mountain was pissed off, angry because of that union. 2022 election. William Ruto in power. Broad-based government is in place. The mountain, the person who was next to the president has been kicked out. Again, the same thing that happened to Uhuru Kenyatta is happening to William Ruto. The mountain is speaking, saying, we voted you with our person, but seems as though you've brought an outsider into your government. How has the presence of Raila Odinga changed the matrix for the president in the mountain?
Of course.
And is the mountain willing to embrace William Ruto as he comes to seduce them with Raila Odinga in government?
Now, the point is, after the fallout, Ruto had to look for an alternative, because this vote for Mount Kenya was gone. In essence, until he's able to seduce them again to be able to bring them in. So once that is done, that's why Raila becomes a useful tool for him, because then he gains Nyanza. But I'm sure somebody has told you, no. You can't leave the first wife. Go back and try to seduce her back into the relationship. Of course, it doesn't now go well for him in terms of, because it looks like, and especially the things that are happening, and people like, we think it's only Kenya that is tribalism. Tribalism is worldwide.
It is.
Is worldwide.
What I wonder is why people insist that tribalism is a bad thing. That's what I keep wondering.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's something to be celebrated.
Yes.
It's just that it's even in its goodness, it's used, unfortunately, as a tool for
especially for deception.
Yes.
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm a Kikuyu. I mean, I have no apologies to make.
That
doesn't make me not like anybody who is a Luya, whatever. There's nothing wrong. And in Europe, they fought many wars until they divided the Europe into various.
Those fellows have only known peace in the last 100 years or so.
Exactly.
Before that, they were killing each other and doing all manner of horrific things to each other.
Exactly. Yes. On tribal basis, right?
Yes.
On tribal basis. So we are even better off. We found them helping us to be more civilized in our fights.
Alex, make a connection for us between then what we saw in terms of the reception of the president's lieutenants yesterday and what you would assume would be a warm reception or a warm welcome for the president. But then we saw the booing, and we can name it. We saw Alice Wahome stand on the podium and she was booed. We saw Kimani Ichung'wah speak, and he was essentially heckled off. Get off. We don't even want to listen to what you have to say. Until, like you said, they didn't get an opportunity to speak at the next stop.
Yes.
Because it was clear what the message from the last or the previous stop was. What bearing does this have? Because these are folks who have surrounded the president. In anything he says, they sing the chorus. We know. And it would appear as though they're on the same team. Can you reject team members and not reject the primary?
Remember, and this is critical for you to remember, and even our listeners to remember, the fact that Ruto is a visitor. So visitors can be listened to. It's a general thinking, it's a general psyche that you don't fight visitors, you don't throw away visitors, you welcome them. These are our own children who have gone against us. It doesn't matter where the visitor is coming from what position. He's a visitor, he will come, we listen to him, he will go. You notice that even in those meetings, the normal relation and jubilation is not there anymore. People are just listening to him and let it go, except the few people who are in the front, and you know the stories that are going on about the 1,000 border guys and all that. But the general crowd, if you've been watching, they're not urinating or in jubilation. So the visa they are welcoming. But you, our sons, who have betrayed us, don't talk to us.
It's like the mother and father can be fighting the whole time at home, and then when the visitor comes, we all smile at each other and behave.
That's
like
what happens in
fine.
African homes. Yeah, anytime. Isn't that what happens?
But what?
I mean, because there's a knock at the doors. Please relax.
You suspend hostilities.
You suspend hostilities for the sake of the visitor.
But I'm still trying to make the connection, though, because these are individuals who rally around the president every time. Every word they speak, you would imagine that has been choreographed and that they speaking the mind of the president. So even if at home folks are mad at them, the person who has come to visit, essentially, these people that you are mad at will still go back with that president.
They will go back to him,
right? But so can I give my support to the president who is up here for him to come back, but not give my support at this level? Can that happen?
I want to define this.
Okay.
The fact that you are listening to a visitor does not mean you are agreeing with him.
You're being polite.
You are being polite is a word. But you from home, don't tell me because I can't be polite with you, shut up.
Oh, okay.
You guys shut up. Let him tell us what he wants to tell us. Si ataenda. Because a visitor is a Lake River. He'll move on to the next level. But you from home, what are you telling us? You're with us all the time. We've told you we're not going to listen to you.
So what
you remember Sabina Chege saying in Parliament that they can't even go home. They were asking for permission that people can allow them to go home. That's the point. Now that you come to the president, we don't want to listen to you, but we want to listen to the Mugeni and what he's telling us. And he might bring us something that will be useful for us.
So while listening to the Mgeni but flanking our very own, what does that mean to the formation of the next crop of people who the president must find to support them, because the current crop of leaders have been rejected at home?
And that's the point. Him being strategic, I expect him after this visit to sit back on the drawing board and decide how to attack the next one. I can tell you this is not the last one. He will be back in the mountain before the end of this year. And he will be with people that now he thinks, because in the process of working with those people, there are people that he has seen that people on his side that people are happy with. There must be. So those are the people that now he will start propping up to be able to use in the next visit to prop him up.
So what you're saying essentially is that the people of the mountain don't really have a problem with the president.
I didn't say that.
I mean, if one plus one,
I didn't say otherwise.
He's just a visitor. We've suspended the hostilities.
Do you think? So even with this, I mean, clearly there's the tribal part of it, which we've already established. There's nothing necessarily wrong. You like what you know. And that's it. It's a human thing. You like what you know.
Yes.
Right? And what you then are able to associate with. And so very quickly, do you think that there is also the connection between the fact that this is somebody who is standing before you who wants your vote? You can sit here and think that maybe he has been endeared to you for whatever reason, but at the end of the day, what he wants from you is your vote. And we know that he will pawn or exchange the currency with which he's going to do that, to buy that, is to make a promise to you. That's the currency that's expended.
Yes.
Right? But do you think that you've already told us that masses are not in the business of analysis.
No.
But will we get to the point whereby you can actually hear what he's saying and know what is the truth and then be able to make a decision based on that perception as opposed to just fly by the whims of a crowd?
For elections, we'll fly by the whims of the masses. This country has been bestowed with a situation where in every election there's always been an issue that has been made the rallying call. Last time it was hustlers. The previous one, you can pick the issues that in every election. In the coming one, there is none.
Okay.
Because the Ruto with his smartness has actually killed the idea that you can create anything else. You remember Gen Z's last year?
Yeah.
That was quashed in a very systematic way, so that it's no longer a currency now for 2027. I'm just hoping that they will wake up one of these finders and remember that, wow, that is a good currency for the 2027.
I don't think that giant is asleep, but that's a conversation for another day.
Another day.
Yeah.
The giant is asleep because we can't see its activity happening.
Right.
I hope the Gen Z will come up again so that it become the currency for the next election. For this coming election, there is no currency yet. So what is left is the president now to be able to sell himself around the country.
Alex, your analysis has been great to hear this morning, and it's interesting to see how we can start to think and continue to think in different directions. Thank you for being in the hot seat of Situation Room this morning, and we look forward to another conversation with you in the future.
Thank
you. It's 8 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission selection panel, headed by Dr. Nelson Makanda, is set to continue interviewing candidates who had applied to be shortlisted for interviews to fill the commissioner positions. Now, they've shortlisted 6 candidates to fill the commissioner positions, with 6 of them expected to present their reasons as to why they qualify for the position today. The recruitment exercise for commissioners by an institution that is behind schedule and has missed key constitutional deadlines continues amid questions about the large number of appointees, with the risk being that the long wait could discourage Kenyans from following the case closely. Now, former Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi says he did not quit despite being displeased by the government, as he felt he could unravel more dirt from the government. Speaking on a local TV station, Muturi also said that President William Ruto did not have an understanding of most leadership roles he assigned to individuals.
I went through a lot of soul searching, and at a point asked, is it worth it? And after consulting a number of close friends, many advised that please stay put. Maybe there is a lot more you could be able to gather about what your administration is doing, and at an appropriate time let the world know. And therefore, somebody would really have it. When the cabinet was dissolved on 11th of July, I remember the president farboard. He even was talking about the Attorney General of the cabinet. I called him, asked him, boss, what is wrong with you? There is no Attorney General of the cabinet. It's the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. And I told him, you cannot dismiss the Attorney General under Section 12 of the Office of the Attorney General Act without setting up a tribunal, because if you read that section, it puts 5 grounds, and grounds can only be established through a semi or quasi-judicial process, namely a tribunal.
And 5 suspects, including 3 women and 2 men, who were arrested in a crackdown on illicit alcohol led by Nakada in Mwaguto village, Kisii sub-county, are set for arraignment. Authorities seized over 55,000 litres of Kangara and 500 litres of Changa in the region. Nakada CEO Dr. Anthony Omerikwa lauded the operation as a significant step in curbing illicit alcohol production and warned of continued enforcement actions. The President will commission a last-mile electrification project in Midheru Tharaka Nithi County and flag off some projects at Embu Town. He'll thereafter conclude his tour tomorrow by visiting Nyeri County in the morning and Kiambu County in the afternoon. Yesterday, former Deputy President Gachagua suffered a blow after Maragua MP Mary Wamaua announced her defection to President William Ruto's camp. Wamaua, who spoke when Ruto visited Murang'a, pledged to support him going forward, noting that a majority of residents in her constituency already support the president.
Hata ingawa your excellency ulikuwa unaniona na ukaniona right from November we were talking with Professor Kithure Kindiki na ako hapa. Your excellency kutoka December tulikuwa tumeanza kuongea na wewe na nikakwambia your excellency wewe ni rafiki yangu, isipokuwa tu ni hapo kidogo kuteresa sio kuanguka. Si ndio hiyo? Na kwa sababu his excellency ameuliza swali na watu wale wameniajiri wameongea, na mkiwa mumeongea mnajua mimi namwambianga hapa ni kama Ruthu na Naomi, where you go I go. Whoever you call your God, I call him God, and whoever you call your president, I also call him my president.
That's the news. Why? I'm Lea Ubaka.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, a quick look at what's going on with traffic right about now. It hasn't been too crazy this Friday. We are still seeing a little bit of traffic coming in from Outer Ring. In from the Eastern Bypass, that already seems to have been done and dusted with. But we see a little bit of traffic on North Airport Road trying to find its way towards the Cabanas interchange. Coming off the Thika Superhighway more or less has diminished as you get towards Survey. Most of it then will head towards the Pangani Underpass. But then after that, you're on Easy Street and all is well. As you're coming off of Limuru Road, coming in from Village Market out towards United Nations Avenue and then through Muthaiga, there is some traffic, all manageable as well. On Ngong Road, it looks good. Coming off of Waiaki Way, doesn't look too bad either. The Southern Bypass will do you good as you get towards the Uhuru Garden, the Langata Road interchange, going towards Karen, going towards the bypass will be fine for now. All right, we're going to keep an eye on all of this. Talk to us in the meantime on SpiceFM KE on X, #The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning. At 6 minutes after 8 o'clock, we keep having those conversations that affect us, whether we are looking at whatever level. And that's what to do in the Situation Room every morning. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, and we're into the third hour of conversations today. It is Healthy Friday. It's a conversation that we have when we look at health and health matters, and we'll tell you what we will be looking into in a short while. ALX is a pathway. I get on this pathway because I want to look into global education. What do I do?
Yes, and what you need to do as a young Kenyan graduate dreaming to get into these global universities is you apply to ALX pathways, which will give you an opportunity to realize your dreams. Now, through the ALX pathways, you can make that dream a reality and gain globally recognized skills, access to extensive network of global universities, and receive expert mentorship before you actually join these universities. ALX is telling you join and start applying before the deadline, which is on the 21st of April. Get applying, get there, and the link that you get to go through for you to get there is a bit, that is bit.ly/LX pathway SFM. Again, bit.ly/LX pathway SFM. Get applying and have an opportunity to be in these global universities.
Excellent stuff. And CT, you've been telling us about how we can earn and spend and earn and spend.
Actually, it's cyclical in the most wonderful of ways. You spend money, you earn points. You earn points, you spend. You spend money, you earn points.
Yes.
So, depending on what you want, you can continue accumulating points. And in the end, the very thing that you've been doing with your money is the very thing that your points will do for you. The points I speak of are Milele points. Yes, and these Milele points are by I&M Bank. I&M Bank have come up with a card. It is called the World Credit MasterCard. Okay? Now, this card enables you to spend, but you earn. Now, if you happen to be someone who is interested and you want to register, you need to go to I&M on the Go platform. That's where you can register.
Okay.
Okay? You'll be informed of the details that are required for registration. But if you continue using this card, you will continue getting points. If you happen to be the 20th individual who has registered for this card, you stand a chance of winning 50,000 Milele points. Now, I didn't say this, so I'll say it now. 1 Milele point equals 1 Kenya shilling.
Good stuff.
So if you're given 50,000 Milele points, it means you have 50,000 shillings to spend.
Okay.
Yes.
Good stuff. Register, spend, earn, like that.
Yes.
All right. And on our Healthy Friday conversation, like we talked about earlier, we're going to be looking at unmasking bipolar mood disorder. Victoria Rika is a psychologist, and she's also the head of corporate mental health and wellness programs at the Chiroma Hospital Group, and she is our guest this hour. Victoria, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Karibu
Thanks for
sana.
having me here.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be looking into this, a growing concern. Is what has been called a growing concern. Others would have called it at reaching emergency levels, whereby something ought to be done. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. CT has a proverb. CT goes to a different African country every week, and he comes back, always in a good mood though. He comes back with a different proverb from each country every day, rather a different proverb each day from each country, and he's going to share that with us, and we'd like to get your interpretation of what he shares, and then hear what you think about that.
I'll try. Last time he asked me about feathers and something, and I didn't have a clue, but today I'll try. Let's see how
feathers
it goes.
Victoria, surely you are telling me you do not know what feathers are.
It was a very complex one about eagles and feathers. I still don't remember it, but let's see how it goes today.
But you clearly remember it was about eagles and feathers, which is good, which means the proverb stuck in your mind.
It did.
This one is a lot simpler. There are no eagles, there are no feathers. It's just about whistles and dogs. Okay?
Okay.
A whistle will not call back a dog that has escaped from the leash.
A whistle
will not call
back a dog that has escaped from the leash.
Yes.
So something else needs to call the dog back. Away from the leash. Right?
Yes. Now tell us, the statement you made is correct. In fact, it's perceptive, because you've realized this whistle isn't going to do it, so something else needs to do it. So give us your interpretation. What do you think it means?
On my way here, I was praying. I hope City won't be up to his proverbs.
He's up.
So I guess if something is not
I want
working,
to thank you for praying.
I would imagine it means if something is not working, try using a different method.
Simple, straightforward, to the point. Thank you.
So your prayer was actually answered.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, because I mean, in being able to decipher things, I think that's where, psychologists then are cut above the rest. We're looking at bipolar mood disorder, and like we said earlier, if we look right here in the Kenyan landscape, it is becoming a growing concern. Others have said that it has gotten to such elevated levels that it is at emergency status. We use it kind of like a buzzword sometimes. We see somebody behaving in a certain way today, and even before the end of the day, they're in a different way. You'll be having a conversation with somebody and they seem to be top spirit, and then later on they seem to have, plummeted into an abyss of something else. And we kind of toss it about, don't we? We say, oh my God, she's bipolar, she's got to be something, without realizing that there is a high possibility that that person actually is. And we say it as a joke sometimes, but we don't realize the severity of what we're saying based on the numbers that we are getting. So just do an overview for us, Victoria, that we're asking the question today, from the very beginning. What is bipolar mood disorder, before we start to look at how far it's permeated and things like this?
Thank you. And truly the field of mental health is very complex. One, because we don't really get the correct statistics, because there's a lot of underreporting, right? Up until recently, suicide was actually a criminal act, but we all know it was decriminalized. Thank God for that. But you realize that 80% of people who die through suicide are experiencing a mental health challenge. And part of those people are experiencing what we call bipolar mood disorder. Now, mental health really, if we first define it, is a very simple definition away from what people know. Because when you talk about mental health, people allude it to mental illness. If I go to a forum and I ask people, how many of you have mental health? People look at me, no one wants to put up their hand. Because they're thinking I'm asking how many of you are mentally unwell. But if you look at the parameters that define mental health, we say mental health is a state, meaning that it can shift. It's a state of well-being, and you only look at 4 parameters. Number 1, are you being productive? If you go to your work environment, whatever your occupation, are you being productive at the end of the day? Can you quantify what you have done? Number 2, are you coping well with the normal stressors of life? Number 3, are you realizing your full potential? Talk about maybe primary school and you'd get a report card and your teacher would say you're scoring 60% in mathematics, whereas you have the ability or the potential to score 80%. So are you living life at your full potential? And then finally, are you making a contribution to the society? When you're away from your place of work, when you're away from your church or your mosque, do people realize your absence, or your presence or absence does not really make a difference? So that is the definition, first of all, of mental health. Then if we are to define one of the conditions, one of the mental illnesses, now bipolar mood disorder, truly there you've put it, people can tell you you're so bipolar. Because I walked into the office today, my boss was so happy, then a few minutes later, he was quite agitated or angry, and no one really knows what ticked him off. So we define people as being bipolar without really giving it the clinical definition. But when you talk about bipolar, bi means 2. And polarity, it's at 2 different ends, right? But the interesting thing about bipolar, which is a severe mood shift, you have severe mood shifts, right? But there is the in-between, because we have different types of bipolar mood disorder. First of all, you have intense mood shifts. You can shift from a very happy mood to a very low or depressed mood. But there is the in-between. So we have bipolar 1, we have bipolar 2, we have what we call cyclothymic bipolar, we have the mixed episode. So it's up to the person having the symptoms getting to a professional for them to get the right kind of diagnosis. So generally, the whole population worldwide is about 46 million who are experiencing bipolar, but we do not have correct statistics, especially in Kenya, because of underreporting.
46 million?
Globally.
Wow, so that's quite something.
Yes.
That's well above, I'm trying to do my percentages here, but that's, 10, teetering on 10%.
Calls for a lot of concern.
It does. So when you talk about a shift in mood, I could have a shift in mood today. I could wake up in the morning and I could be okay, and I could have a shift in mood because something happened. So are we saying with bipolar that not that there was necessarily an episode that happened that would give me elated joy or that would give me now a depressed situation, but we're saying that in just the normal course of things is where we see the shift. You didn't hear about the death of somebody, for example. You didn't hear that you lost something. You didn't hear that, you just see a shift in mood and you can't connect it to a particular occurrence.
Now, that connection you're talking about could be what you call the triggers, right?
Okay.
So maybe let's first of all look at what would cause it. What would cause the bipolar? Now, of course, there is the issue of genetical component. And I would like to clarify, you do not inherit a mental illness. You simply inherit a predisposition, right? So bipolar is actually one of the most heritable mental illnesses that there is, next to something like schizophrenia. So if you have a parent or a sibling who has bipolar, then there's likelihood that it runs in the family, right? But you inherit that predisposition. It's just like when we say that there's someone who has hypertension in the family. It's not a must that you must get hypertension, but you could have that vulnerability, that predisposition. So what now could be the trigger It could be that you have that predisposition, then something happens. Like you go through a very traumatic experience, you go through a sudden change in life, maybe a divorce, or you go through the death of someone that you really love, and it triggers because you had already a predisposition. Again, when it comes to the brain structure of people who have bipolar, it's been proven that they have structural and functional changes. It's a research that is still ongoing. I can see you looking at me like you don't believe that.
I'm just curious as to what could possibly be happening in the brain that would then alter, the mood to the extent whereby it is a problem. Because the truth is, Victoria, that I can't just be in a bad mood. It can happen by nature of the fact that I'm human. I can just be, I'm not really sure, and it could be hormonal. It could be that I saw somebody who just ticked me off. It could be anything like that. But I'm trying to make the distinct difference then between just being in a bad mood or being in a really good mood, and then something happened later, to something that is constant and it's a problem until we notice that something needs to be done about it.
Let me narrow it down. For example, if you're experiencing bipolar 1, which is where you have a lot of mania. Mania meaning you have elevated moods, right? You're very restless, you have what we call pressured speech. You're talking very fast, right? You're moving from one topic to the other. And when you have a manic episode, it's possible that you could also have what we call psychosis. You're out of touch with reality. This is where you have hallucinations and delusions. So hallucinations, you could be hearing voices. You could be seeing things which other people are not in, but in your reality, they're there. You could also be very deluded. I'm not going to drink this cup of water. Why? It seems that lady who walked in and gave it to me, she put something in it. I'm very deluded and I feel I'm not going to take that water. But the symptoms, there's a criteria to it. You must have those symptoms when it comes to bipolar 1, at least for 7 days.
Okay.
Right? So there's that criteria. When it comes to, I think it's hypomania, which is now a lower version of the mania, then it must be continuous for not less than at least 4 days. So there's a criteria to it. So we put this into context, and then we look at the other symptoms surrounding, right? And when you're trying to diagnose bipolar disorder, you not only look at the patient, but you also want to look at the family. You want to look at the people who surround them, maybe if it is colleagues from the work environment. Because sometimes you have admissions done by people from the office, right? Because there's a very high risk of misdiagnosing, right? Because, for example, if you're experiencing bipolar 2, which has more depression than hypomania, you can come to me in the depressive state, and I will diagnose you with major depressive disorder because the symptoms are the same. But someone will come in from the family and say, hey, apart from these symptoms of depression, there are times when she's very restless, very agitated, having a lot of pressured speech. So I put it into context, and then I'm sure that this is someone who's experiencing bipolar 2, which is more depressive than.
Okay, Victoria, when you talk about mental health, it is a conversation that the Republic pretty much has not yet embraced. There are stereotypes associated with it because at times one would be going through this and you're just dismissed as, we are going to mood swings, talk up. If you are a child, you're like, you better behave or I will deal with you. So there is the aspect as well. You mentioned for us to have proper diagnosis, there is need for family to equally have an input in that. But there's a risk that perhaps even the family does not know what it is you're going through. So that information might drop at some point because they do not know, or they would not come to you to give you that information. So how do we deal with that aspect that the family does not know? There is stereotype that is there, and the dismissive aspect of it, mood swings,
which is why, for example, I'm here trying to create awareness, because part of what mental health institutions are doing is doing the outreach programs, creating awareness in very, I don't know whether to call them unconventional places, because we go to churches. If you have a chama meeting, if you have a Rora show, we will come and talk about mental health and tell you that these are the symptoms of depression, these are the symptoms of alcohol use disorder, these are the symptoms of bipolar. So we create that awareness. And we also do, as part of our treatment plan, family psychoeducation. So if a patient is admitted, even for something like anxiety, we take the family through what mental health is all about, the full spectrum of what mental health is. Of course, we can't tell them about all the diseases because there are very many, but we'll give them the highlights, right? That if this person is going through, they're not sleeping well, or they're sleeping too much, their appetite has changed, maybe they are more irritable than usual, and they fit within a particular criteria, because you must look at the length of time as well, then it could herald that there's a mental health issue, mental health problem. So we create a lot of awareness. We try on social media, through Facebook, through YouTube, through Instagram, create awareness to tell people that, hey, we must normalize this conversation around mental health. Because part of the reason why families or churches or even the workplaces are not supportive is because of the stigma. And stigma comes from a source of misinformation or lack of information altogether. So creating awareness for us is a big part. Yeah.
Every time one talks about a disorder or a disease or a condition, people may not be very interested in the causes, or they may ask. Why I ask is because the moment it has something to do with mental health, then all the myths and misconceptions that people have regarding mental health come into play. So it interferes with the truth that may be told. And then comes in the medication. Which is now, how do you sort it out? And you'll be told very many things. Now, are there simple ways that do not necessarily require medication that can, should we say, quieten the turbulence that this particular condition comes with?
Now, bipolar disorder is a lifelong condition.
Oh, no.
Meaning that you must take medication. In severe cases, we also have what we call ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, where we use now the electricity and I hope you know about why we put the electrodes on the brain, try to create some sort of a seizure to kind of, for lack of a better word, align the brain.
Jumpstart
it. I didn't want to use that word.
Sorry.
Well, yes. Yeah, so with bipolar disorder, it's lifelong, so you must take your medication, right? And the problem where people have relapses and thereby become worse is because you stop taking your medication once you start feeling better. But alongside medication, there's also therapy, which will help you, right? But if you come with bipolar 1, you're having a manic episode, we cannot do therapy because you're not lucid enough to have a session, right? So we do medication. So we'll give you medication. We will do individual therapy, individual psychoeducation, we'll do CBT, we'll do interpersonal therapy for you to understand how to manage relationships with people close to you, and then we'll also do family psychoeducation. Then we'll talk to you about self-care, and then also being able to identify your triggers. If I'm in a very stressful situation, how do I manage the stress to avoid it triggering me to a bipolar episode? So there's no software really. You must take your medication, and alongside medication you must also do therapy.
Can I ask, what happens in the brain that would bring about bipolar mood disorder? There must be something, because you go back to the brain to then realign it. What happens that sets things off in the first place?
Now, I may not be an authority on that, but what happens is that we have the neurotransmitters in the brain, the chemical messengers, isn't it? And like I did mention, for example, if you're having depression, it could be that there's something with the neurotransmitters, the chemistry, the chemical imbalances in the brain, right? So if there's an imbalance, then it could ordinarily push you to a place where you become mentally unwell. So it could be an interplay of the chemical imbalances within the brain.
Okay.
And because of this, then it means that even if you're not predisposed, let's talk about someone who's predisposed to it, what then would heighten the triggers? What then would increase the possibility of this latent condition now manifesting and becoming full-blown?
Your inability to manage stresses. It could be that you're also playing around with alcohol and substances and drugs. It could be that you also have an underlying medical condition. For example, if you have something like multiple sclerosis, if you have something like a traumatic brain injury, if you have encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain, that could also trigger mania, which is maybe not even related to bipolar. So we need to also assess you for other medical conditions which could be triggering the mania. So once we eliminate that one, then we want to find out around your environment what could be triggering these episodes. It could be something very difficult you've gone through in life, some trauma that you've experienced, then it will trigger you into a place where you have bipolar. It's just a change of environment.
That can help.
Something that is traumatic to you.
Or if you sleep enough.
Well, that could be self-care now.
Go ahead.
Okay, now that's self-care. But then again, there is one of the ways that has been considered to be one of the ways to deal with bipolar disorders, which is lifestyle changes, exercising more, knowing what it is you're dealing with, talking more, and how critical is it for someone to understand what it is they're going through, seek assistance, and just home-based remedies? Because we're talking about, City had asked about softer ways of dealing with it. Could lifestyle changes fall into that?
Absolutely, because for example, if you're taking alcohol and drugs and you're also taking medication for bipolar, then of course there will be a problem, right? Because of the effectiveness of the medication. When it comes to self-care, it's about, how many hours of sleep are you getting? We normally say 7 to 8 hours is good enough, right? And then also, what are you eating? Because nutrition also correlates to your mental health. What are you eating? If you're doing physical exercises, you're aware that, when you do physical exercises, they release the endorphins, which help with your mental health. And simple things like, how do I manage stress? We say there are 4 ways of managing stress. You can accept it, you can adapt, you can alter, or you can avoid the stressor. So do I have stress management techniques? Do I intentionally take time out for myself? Maybe I go to the spa, maybe I do a road trip. What do I do in terms of my lifestyle? So lifestyle changes also play a very big role when it comes to managing your mental health, by extension, managing bipolar disorder. And also seeking support. There is actually a very good support group called, I think, Heroes of Bipolar, which was started by Dr. I forget his name, Patrick, who is also lived experience, right? So if you're able to join a support group, try to connect with people who have similar experiences so that this problem is not unique to myself. The others going through the same thing, and they'll tell you how they maneuver, and then you're able to pick 1 or 2 things from them, and also help them also with your own ways of managing the illness.
Taking the first step is actually probably one of the most difficult things, and then we'll come back and say, okay, well, then how do you identify or recognize? We still have to deal with the fact that having mental health conversations in the country and around the continent to a great extent is still highly stigmatized.
Very.
And for us to be able to actually stand up and say, then I have a problem, or that I recognize that somebody else has a problem, is a big issue. So let's come into that when we come back from this break. We're having a conversation this morning with Victoria Rika, who is a psychologist and the head of corporate mental health and wellness program at the Chiromo Hospital. We're having that conversation this morning, and we'll come back right after this break and delve a little bit deeper into some of these issues.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your
Save money on your rising electricity bill with StarTime Solar Home Solution. We offer a complete home and commercial energy saving system that includes solar panels with 15-year warranty, lithium battery with 10 years warranty, and an inverter with 5 years warranty. StarTime Solar Home Solution is efficient, reliable, and safe to power essential appliances, complete home lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, microwaves, iron box, instant shower, and entertainment devices, television, computers, Wi-Fi, and so much more. Say yes to reduced electricity bills and call us today on 0719 077 777 and get started on your green energy journey today. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi currently at 17 degrees. It's 17 and sunny into Nakuru and 17 and sunny in Nyeri. 18 and mostly sunny conditions in Eldoret, while Mombasa is cloudy at 26. Malindi, rain showers continue at 27. Mostly sunny at 22 into Kisumu, while Kakamega is sunny at 21 and it's cloudy at 22 in Kampala, with partly sunny conditions at 25 in Dar es Salaam. 14 and cloudy in Johannesburg, while into Mogadishu at 30 it is sunny, and Addis Ababa is sunny at 17. We're looking at mostly clear conditions at 26 in Lagos, with cloudy conditions at 24 in Kinshasa.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
All right, having an easy time with traffic this morning. Just looking at Landys, which in and outbound is crazy, as it tends to happen getting into the weekend. A little bit of traffic still on Jogo Road, getting towards Makadara at the train station. Kangundo Road is still busy. Parts of the Thika Superhighway, just at Survey, and then coming in from Kiambu Road right around Muthaiga Square is where you find the busiest of it this morning. Before that, I think coming in from Githurai, we're all right. Kangundo Road, not so bad this morning. And looking then through towards Outer Ring, touching on North Airport Road, no traffic here. And so these are good things that we see today. Ngong Road, as you get towards that intersection going towards Community on one side and Valley Road on the other, will have some traffic. But again, just a smidgen and not too much to worry about. Let's come back and see what happens in about half hour or so. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. Whether it's groceries, fuel or luxury shopping, make every swipe count. The I&M Bank Milele Points gives you real rewards for your spending. What's even better, every 20th customer to get the card gets 50,000 Milele reward points worth 50,000 shillings.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Victoria Rika, a psychologist, is our guest this hour on our Healthy Friday conversation. And we're looking into, the intrigues around and the treatments and the management of bipolar mood disorder. Now, we've heard people say, and just looking at, some of the conversations that we have around bipolar, is that it's one of the less severe mental health disorders. Is that true?
It's actually one of the most severe mental health disorders, right? So I don't know where that came from, because it's one of the most severe mental health illnesses that we're talking about, alongside things like schizophrenia and the like. And it interrupts your life, it interrupts your productivity. When you're having, for example, a manic episode, you're bound to make decisions which ordinarily you'd not make, because you have a lot of grandiosity. You feel, I'm on top of the world, I have supernatural powers, I can conquer. And you might start people on a project when you're manic and you are not diagnosed, and tomorrow you're waking up and there's no project at all, and people are wondering what happened. So it can really disorganize your life. You can be at a place where if you're manic, you spend money so recklessly, a lot of hypersexuality. So if not diagnosed, bipolar can practically bring your life to a standstill, especially when you're having manic episodes. And also on the flip side, when you're having depressive episodes, you can't get out of bed, you feel, you become isolative, you have suicidal tendencies. And one of the things that you need to look out for in a family where there's a lot of suicide happening is the undiagnosed bipolar 2 disorder. So it's not a simple illness, it's actually a very serious illness. And especially if you hear that you need medication for the rest of your life, it's actually meaning that that is quite a severe kind of an illness. But not to make people fearful, because there are resources to help you, in treatment.
So the stigma around mental health, we keep talking about it, that it's an issue. We see then it displayed. You talked about suicide earlier. We talked about some bizarre things that we're actually seeing happening, and that bipolar disorder is one of the most severe that you talk about. The characteristics of it is that when you see somebody who's hyper, very happy, we associate that with things happening, and so we wouldn't necessarily pinpoint it to something being wrong. We would just say, oh well, Dennis is in a really good mood today and he's doing some great things, so that's fantastic. We rarely connect it to Wednesday next week when I see the same Dennis and he just doesn't want to talk to anybody, and maybe he didn't come to work that day and we don't know why he's unwell. We rarely make the connection between those two episodes. That's why, again, then we say, okay, it's not so bad, because they're happy today, they're sad tomorrow, who cares? Is there a way in which you would then be able to pinpoint and say, do we see patterns forming, or is it really just high lows?
Now, we talked about the criteria, right? That if the manic symptoms last within seven days at least, then we are likely to start leaning towards bipolar 1. If we call the family and they say this person has been spending recklessly, they're having risk-taking behaviors, a lot of sexual activities, then we come closer to a diagnosis. But now the sad part about most mental illnesses, as with other illnesses, is denial. Someone will say that I am not mentally unwell. And because of that, they will not go to a professional to seek clarification. Are my moods regular, right? And the people around them, they're used to this person. Today they're hyper, tomorrow they're they are low. And it's just, if you reflect on all of us where we came from, maybe the villages, there was just that one person who seemed very off in their moods. But how had we concluded about them? That's the way she is. Today, when you met her, she was very happy. But tomorrow, the next day, she's not even opening the door for you, right? So we classified them as being that's their norm, right? But it's up to us, people who are also around them. And again, it goes back to relationships. If, for example, that is your boss or your supervisor who has those mood shifts, it's very hard to tell them, hey, I think you need to see a professional because your moods are not normal. But if it's a person that you have a close relationship with, then you're able to tell them, by then I think your moods are a little bit concerning. If you look at maybe last week, there was this you, with this kind of mood. This particular day, there's this you. That is why we encourage that you have wellness champions within the work organizations. People who can champion the cause of mental health and realize this particular person, their behavior is not within the normal category. Their mood shifts could indicate to something besides just a normal curve. It could be a lady, it could be one of those days when it's she's on her cycle. Of course, there are those shifts, right? But is it normal? You need to have people who are able to recognize the symptoms, which is where now wellness champions come in.
Right.
And then also you yourself as an individual being able to see there's something that is happening around me. If I chart my moods because we ask them to chart your moods. Today I feel very happy. After a couple of days I feel very depressed. What could be going on? And then having that insight to know that I need to see a professional. Just like the way you do your readings for blood pressure. They don't have to be necessarily the same in the course of the week, but you don't always go to a professional. But you know when to go to a professional. The same thing with our mental health. So we need to recognize.
So if you suffer bipolar mood disorder, you would know. You would know if you were to admit to yourself. If you were to have a meeting with yourself, you would essentially know that there was something wrong.
There was something wrong if you are aware of the symptoms. Because then again, you could be unaware. You could just know that there's something wrong with my moods and maybe mention them to a GP and tell them, I find myself having very erratic moods. There are times when I feel very happy and I feel like I'm spending. I feel like I can go to Naivasha right now and come back. But then the next week, I feel like I'm on a low. So you mentioned to a GP who now maybe does what we call medical analysis and sees there's nothing else there's nothing medical to have this person have this kind of symptoms. So they forward you to a psychiatrist or a psychologist because like again we said, there are medical causes why you would have that mania. For example, if you have a traumatic brain injury, if you have multiple sclerosis, if you have things like encephalitis. So we want to rule out medical causes first of all before we move on to psychiatric causes.
So we talk about mental health in the country, and then comes in the government with regards to its policies and its communication to the Republic pretty much on matters mental health. We know that the Kenya Mental Health Policy 2015-2030 that was put in place to try address these issues, that plus the recent decision by the court decriminalizing death by suicide. And these are all conversations that come into helping boost the entire conversation on mental health. So how critical is government's presence when it comes to matters mental health and pushing that forward? Because since the policy was in place, we see little being pushed from the government side. So just how critical would be the government being on the front side in having these conversations?
100%, extremely critical, because they're the movers, right? We can make policies and then put them someplace on the shelf and they don't help us in any way. So the government needs to really come in handy and help implement that policy. We have some organizations who are forward thinking. They've been reaching out to us and telling us, hey, we heard about this policy. Can you come and train our wellness group on the policy? Because according to your SOPs within whatever organization, you need to have a mental health committee, composed from people from different professions within the organization who run with the cause of mental health. So the policy has tabulated this needs to happen, but you need to implement it within your organization. So the government needs to be at the forefront, because the budget on mental health, let's not even go there, is very low, right? The last I checked. They've been, of course, trying to bring it up a little bit higher, but it is very low right now. There is some improvement because we have psychiatrists and psychologists, I think, at most county hospitals, if I'm not wrong, but the government needs to be at the forefront, because private stakeholders are not really going to go out and do a lot of CSR, but the government, in my assessment, can afford to do that at whatever level within the different counties, within the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you manage bipolar mood disorder so much so that you become, normal functioning? You can go about your normal duties with the management of it with therapy and drugs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only problem is if you do not take your medication as advised, if you do not go for therapy. If you don't take medication, of course, you get a lot of relapses. And the more you relapse, the worse you become in terms of your functionality. Your cognitives, will have a decline. But if you take your medication well, visit your psychiatrist, your psychologist at the right time, do self-care, nutrition, exercise, you will hold a job, you will have a marriage, you will have a life as normal as the next person. Yeah.
So then comes the small matter of expense.
I knew you'd get there, City.
Because everything we're saying, if you have a condition that will be with you for the rest of your life, it means you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. Do we know of instances where it tapers off so you get to require less of what you took? Not necessarily off, but less.
Yes. And that's why you need to keep consulting your psychiatrist, because they can taper you off, right? And probably lower the dosage, right? But still maintain you on some sort of medication. But they can slowly taper you off, right? Especially if they're using a combination of different medications. Now, the issue of cost is there. There's no other way to say it, but there is a cost to it. Because if you're having hypertension, if you're having diabetes, there is a cost attached to it. But if you look at the flip side to it, if you don't invest in that cost, then the outcome is worse. Because you'll really, really deteriorate mentally, and that will put you off a job, it will put you off society. So you look at the cost as something that you need to incur to maintain your mental health. I think the county hospitals, I'm not very sure about that. I know at Chiroma we do have the medications, we do have the therapy, we do have the psychiatrists and psychologists, and we do not turn people away and tell them, hey, because you can't afford therapy, then we will not see you for this particular condition. So the cost, yes, is there. You can hear I'm really struggling, but it is there. Insurances nowadays are covering a lot of those mental health conditions. Most insurances, actually. So if you're on insurance, which is a good thing, then it is covering a lot of those conditions.
Okay.
It is, yes.
How prevalent is this disease in the country?
Like I said at the beginning, in Kenya, we may not have the actual statistics. But at the hospital, we've seen quite a number of people having the diagnosis. Why we may not have the statistics is because mental health is still not a place where you go and collect data and come and report and say, yes, I have 20 people who have bipolar. It's still not a very open place. So we may not have the correct statistics, but we do know that there are people who are experiencing bipolar mood disorder who are on medication. And some who are not yet diagnosed and still need the medication.
So, from the numbers that you gave, we're looking about 3 to 4% of the world's population then with, and those are those who are documented.
Yes.
So it's possible that there's a lot more.
Absolutely.
Than that. Okay. So then, of course, looking at our socials, the folks who have questions and are asking certain things. First of all, the question is there a support group for people who are living with bipolar disorder?
Yes, there's that one group called Bipolar Heroes Foundation by Dr. Patrick Burrett. He's a doctor who has also come out as living with bipolar. So there is that support group, and I guess if you Google it, you can get it. That's the one that comes to my mind topmost for people living with bipolar. Yeah.
Okay, and so of course there is the treatment question. Please clarify about neurotransmitters of cortisol and dopamine.
I know. Now, neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers in the brain, right? Dopamine is the feel-good hormone.
Yes.
So if you're getting medication to help you with, for example, depression, it stabilizes your mood. It brings you to a place where your mood is where it is supposed to be, right? But I say for each person who may be having bipolar 1, first of all, you need to understand what type of bipolar do I have? Because I don't want to take your medication if you have bipolar 1. I'm not saying you have bipolar 1. But I don't take your medication if I'm having, for example, bipolar 2. But unless I know I have bipolar 2, I could go to someone who has bipolar 1 and use their medication. So it is a very personal or individual treatment regimen. What works for you in terms of medication may not work for me. And remember that we are treating them with different medications, right? Based on their levels.
So based on levels of what, though?
based on their levels of whether it is bipolar 1, it is bipolar 2. And when they come with, for example, bipolar 2, are we treating them when they're having the very depressive levels, or are we treating them when they have hypomania, which is a lower version of the manic episode? Yeah.
So, as is, again, with the stigmatization that we deal with here in Africa, that we hear that if mental health is something that a lot of people will tell you, come on, snap out of it. You're depressed because you don't what? Get out of bed, take a shower, go take a walk, you'll be fine. Or, you're so hyper and somebody tells you, can you just calm down and focus on what you're supposed to be doing? We do these things because we don't know how to deal with it, and we don't want to. It would be the lowest of lows of a disease when somebody has something wrong with their brain. I mean, I'm saying it as curt as it sounds. That is how we think. And sometimes we have to deal with the realities in order to then be able to deal with the issues. How can, and this is not folks who are suffering from, but for folks who are surrounding these, how can we be more sensitive to the possibilities of these issues? How can we be more sensitive when we actually know that somebody is in that position? How can we actually support without being in a group?
I think for how do we support is by first of all understanding the condition, and by understanding that you could also actually be a statistic of mental health, of poor mental health without even your knowledge, right? Because again, we say that 1 in every 4 is experiencing or could be experiencing a mental health disorder. So if you're not diagnosed, don't assume you don't have a mental illness. How do we support is by understanding the condition, especially if you have family, if you have a workmate who is going through bipolar disorder. Educate yourself, which is when now the mental health policy from the government comes in very handy. Create committees within organizations who champion the cause of mental health. How do we support? Is, for example, by creating a culture where we talk about mental health the way we'll talk about going to the dentist, they will talk about going to the gyna. The stigma is worse if you're self-stigmatizing. If you internalize what people say about bipolar and then take it and say, oh, I have bipolar, then you have a lot of self-pity. That is worse than if the stigma is coming from the public. If you raise above self-stigma, then stigma from the public really does not mean anything. But we need to support people who are experiencing mental illness, encourage them to go for their therapy, encourage them to take their medication, stop, say, tracking them off from their medication. There are very many people who come in and say, by the way, I went to this herbalist or I went to this traditional healer and they gave me something and I overcame the bipolar. It's not going to happen that way. And even for us at Chiromo, what we do is that if you say that I have this pastor or this person who comes and prays, we'll tell you as long as you're doing your conventional medication, you're doing your therapy, then we absolutely welcome them to come and pray with you and do what they need to do with you. Encourage them to go for the medication, encourage them to go for the treatment, and encourage them to know that they are people who can live a normal life. You cannot tell someone snap out of cancer or snap out of, a broken leg. There is a process to it. So what is the process to bipolar and other mental illnesses?
There is the small issue, as City would put it, of of the number of counseling psychologists in the country vis-a-vis the population that you're dealing with, especially in the rural areas. Because yes, I'm in Nairobi, I can access Chiromo, I can come there. But now if you go in Uriri sublocation, Kanyamkago North, that's where it comes from. No,
that's where City comes from.
It comes from Tamu. Yeah, but we're talking about a population that first of all do not have this information, and then the radius upon which someone has to go to get a counsellor is also a problem. So we go back to the government investment and making sure that the policy is there in terms of having enough numbers of counselling psychologists to be able to deal with the pressure. So in terms of your presence in our population, how are we doing?
Not too well. We actually very few, even fewer psychiatrists. I think they're less than 200, if I'm not wrong, in Kenya. So the counseling psychologists could be a little bit more, and the clinical psychologists as well, but the reach is very, very low. We are definitely not in the villages, and we're definitely not in those local populations. We try, make inroads by going to especially churches or community or using CBOs to help us get to talk about mental health, but it's quite a stretch, and we've not done a lot in that area. So if you guys know, through your channels how we can reach the local population, would be glad to be party to it.
I mean, still making a connection between local populations and even those who, when we're looking at, on the spectrum, on the social spectrum, that we still have a competing, essential of competition of priorities. And so we don't have the bandwidth. I mean, again, as uncouth as it sounds, we don't have the bandwidth to deal with mental health issues, whereas you have so many things competing for your attention and your resources. Sadly, somebody who is then suffering from a mental health issue is not considered as for somebody who might have a gaping wound, for example, or a disease that we can see this person is lying down there suffering. You see what I mean?
I agree with that.
Bread and butter issues take priority over mental health because we cannot see a physical manifestation of this illness. We cannot see that. And so if I have 100 shillings, take your guess as to what I'm going to spend it on. If there is food that needs to be bought or transport that needs to be taken, and somebody who seems like they're in a bad mood or a good mood. And that's as simply as we put it. How are we then going to be able to turn that upside down? Because what do you do? What do you tell a father who has a 21-year-old, 22-year-old who is acting up, who's got so much in terms of responsibility, and say, okay, well, you need to deal with this one before it becomes something else? How do we do that when there are competing issues in society today?
And that's a tough question, and I really get what you're saying, because even people who are on insurances, we have people who come in and tell us, therapy, how much? Then they say, let me wait for a real illness to come in before I come for therapy, right? And maybe that therapy would have actually stopped that real illness from happening. Besides probably creating more awareness and telling people that when you have poor mental health, there's a research that we did at Chiromo by Dr. Frank Jenga and group, and they went around the country trying to assess the mental health of people, of Kenyans. And they found out that up to 25% of people who are in outpatient clinics are there because they have a mental illness which is not diagnosed, but they're there because they have gastrointestinal issues, they have colds, they have back pains, right? But in reality, what they need is a psychiatrist or a psychologist, because what happens when you're having mental health issues is that you start having what we call psychosomatic illnesses, because your immune system becomes very compromised and you're susceptible to infections. So the only thing that we can say is to create awareness down to the grassroots and tell people that you can actually avoid medical conditions by taking care of your mental health. How we do that, probably a story for another day, but that is what needs to be done.
You know, it's the daunting thing about bipolar is that one isn't even certain about how it comes about. I mean, there are many things that are attributed to it. So one can't even talk about how to prevent it. And yet, once you have it,
it's there.
It's your partner for life. The good news, though, is that you can function. If it's managed, you can function, you can work, you can actually have what you call a regular life. But why I asked the question earlier on about the prevalence is because with prevalence, you will then get to document where you see the prevalence in relation to other areas. And then you will ask the question. For instance, when you talk about cancer in this country, we have some data. And there are areas where you find there are more cases of cancer. So now you're not certain whether the care-seeking behavior of that community is better than another one, so that when they go, and because of that, they actually get to understand that particular disease. Back to bipolar. If you were to speak to the people who are listening, because we fear anything that has to do with the mind and the brain. We fear madness. And everything that has to do with the brain is considered madness.
Yes.
We fear because most of the time we don't know what to do with it. How do you communicate the need to understand that the bipolar disorders are a condition just like any other? It's just that it happens to be in the brain.
Just the way you've communicated, CT, right? That it is a normal, that you can live your life very normally if it is well managed. As with most mental illnesses, even schizophrenia, which people, really have a fright for because of the hallucinations and the delusions and what have you. But when you have a good treatment regimen, you have the right kind of diagnosis. And the tricky bit of bipolar disorder is the diagnosis. Because we mentioned, you can see a doctor when you're having the symptoms of depression. and you go there alone. But there's a family member who needs to tell people that away from the depressive episodes, this person sometimes has hypomania, which is now when they're restless, they're agitated, they have a bit more energy than usual. So the clinician puts 2 and 2 together and says this person has what? Has bipolar 2 disorder. Once you get the right diagnosis, then with the right professionals, they will let you know that you can actually live a normal life. If you have your correct medication, if you do therapy, and if you do self-care and support from the people around you. So it is an entirely acceptable thing to say that, yes, you can have bipolar and live a very, very normal life as long as you're taking care of yourself and taking the medication. The more relapses that you have because of not observing your treatment regimen, the worse it is for you, because relapses make you get worse for whatever mental illness.
You actually get worse. So when we say that we're looking at it from across the spectrum, whether you're on this side today, on this side tomorrow, and that the folks around you that can actually say, well, this is a problem, do we advocate for people around you making a suggestion for you to actually go and have somebody look at you or have a conversation with you? Or do you make a suggestion to that person and just say, how do you go about it when you've noticed that there's a problem here? How do you go about it to say, maybe you should see somebody? It's not the easiest of conversations to have.
And so just anybody telling you, for example, if you're the one having those symptoms,
Exactly.
right? It has to come from someone who is very close to you and someone with whom you'll not take offense, right? And then even the timing, how you say it is very, very important, because I won't come to someone who is not very close to, even if we work together, and tell them, but they have noticed your mood shifts, really there's something.
Have you seen somebody
problem.
about that? Yeah.
So if I'm not able to tell them, but I have noticed, at the work environment, to encourage people, then talk to the person who seems closest to them and let them talk to them and tell them, by the way, I think there's something wrong. In proper language. I think you need to, last week you were this way, this week you're this way. Do you think there could be an issue? In language that they will understand and not get offended. So if you're not able to reach out to them, try find out who is closest to them to reach out to them and tell them that this could be actually a problem.
Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. Some uncomfortable conversations, but necessary to have, because we do live in a society where these things are happening and we need to continue to raise awareness around them. So thank you so much for being here and having that conversation with us this morning. Victoria Rika is a psychologist and head of corporate mental health and wellness programs at the Chiroma Hospital Group and has been our guest on this Healthy Friday conversation around about the issues of bipolar mood disorder, what you can do, what you should know, where you can get help. Asante sana. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. A university student linked to the murder of a fellow student at the Multimedia University has finally surrendered to authorities days after being on the run. Police say the suspect, a first-year electrical engineering student, is also a student at the MMU. Nairobi Police Commander George Aseto said he surrendered at the Sultan Hamoud police station in Makwini last night after being linked to the murder of Sylvia Kimto, who was a first-year mass communications and computer science major. The suspect had been on the run since last Monday, when he is believed to have killed and dumped Kimto's body in a water tank at the college. Seda said a team from Nairobi had travelled to Sultan Hamoud police station to pick up the suspect for grilling. An autopsy is planned on the body today to tell how she died, even as relatives and friends have demanded for justice.
Sile ile kitu aliniambia kuna kijana anamsumbua, ampendi, huwa anamforce anataka akuwe rafiki yake.
Mimi nikakuja majioni kitu ya 10 hapo. Nikapata the guy with the suitcase anajaribu kuilalia on the top of the head. hapo kwa head kama pillowcase, and then it felt uncomfortable, then akadecide kuiweka hapo tu kando ya hiyo desk. And then after that the morning kuamkia niliamka kitu 8 hapo, nikapata huyo jamaa bado nikashatoka na yuko around, na the suitcase was also not around.
Police in Kondele have arrested a woman accused of scalding her 17-year-old son with hot water after he allegedly stole and sold 2 kilograms of maize from their home in Manyata, Kisumu County. The boy, a Form 3 student at St. Loyola Magadi Secondary School, is currently admitted at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital with severe burn injuries. Kondele Location Chief Morris said the woman confessed to boiling water and pouring it on her son as punishment, leading to her immediate arrest. Now, former Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi has continued to defend his work experience while dismissing President William Ruto's claims that he was negligent at work. Speaking on a local TV station, Muturi noted that there are times he was even forced to correct the president, who seemed to not have an understanding of some rules.
On the day we launched the 24th supplement in April of last year, which of the Kenya law, which was last launched in 1999 at Safari Park, the same William Ruto was commending me full of praise about what I have been able to do, because he saw we were actualizing our manifesto. Right. But never mind that. And I think that's the area I don't want to go to, because I think that's where William Ruto wants to take me. So that I keep defending it, try to defend myself.
Muturi has also revealed that he played a big role in reconciling Ruto and retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. However, Muturi says their relationship began to deteriorate when he tried to advise Ruto not to sack Rigathi Gachagua.
And he knows, William Ruto knows. Even he used to say to me, when his relationship with Uhuru began going south, he would call me and ask me, JB, what is happening? What happened to my friend? What? In fact, let me disclose to the nation. In January 2020, because their relationship was getting so strained, I sought the intervention of the religious sector.
And that's the news wire. I'm Lea Obaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so taking a look at what traffic looks like right about now at a few minutes after 9 o'clock. It's just a little bit of it left on the Thika Superhighway. It's probably where you see the most of it now as you get towards the Pangani Underpass and Landis Road, which, by the way, now is spilling over towards Kamkunji at the roundabout. And Kangundo Road also still pretty busy now, in and outbound from Outer Ring, going through towards Njiru or in this other direction. And apart from that, I think we're doing all right for Friday. There's a little bit of traffic that comes off of Ngong Road and goes towards Valley Road. But as you come off of Waiyaki Way, you're doing okay. A little bit of traffic also as we look at that hold up between Lower Kabete and Spring Valley, but that will be out of in no time, I'm sure. Let's keep an eye on things and keep them moving. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. Don't just spend, earn while at it. The I&M Bank Milele Rewards makes every swipe count. Earn every point on every purchase and redeem them for flights, shopping and more. Plus, every 20th customer to get the card gets 50,000 Milele Reward points worth 50,000 shillings.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And at a few minutes after 9 o'clock, a very good morning to you. And we're getting into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation for this morning, as well as for this week into the first week of April. A number of conversations that we'll have, and we'll speak directly to the President this morning. Dear Mr. President, we will speak, and there's some things that we need to then be able to look into. We'll talk about that in just a bit. ALX, a pathway onto which I can step on when I am looking towards getting global education. Dennis?
Yes. When you talk about global education and global universities, and when you talk about these global universities, one would beg to ask, what exactly are we talking about? The universities that ALX has partnered with, and let's just look at them. We talk about Vanderbilt University, Macalester College, Patton University, Hamilton College, Bates College, Tufts University, UC Berkeley, or the University of Chicago, just to paint a picture of some of the universities that they have. And LX Pathways opens doors to these and many, many more universities that one can join in. Remember, 21st of April is the deadline, and you can apply as the competition still for these opportunities are high. You go to bit.ly/LX Pathway SFM. That is bit.ly/LX Pathway SFM. Be sure to apply. Get yourself an opportunity. What are you waiting for?
All right, there you go. And getting into a number of conversations that we will have this morning around certain things that the president then does need to address. And as we get into that, joining us this morning for that conversation is Fanyamambo Kenothia, a lawyer, as well as, a social commentator, as well as, dipping fingers and whole self into making sure that some of these conversations remain front and center for things that must be addressed. Fanyamambo, good morning.
A very good morning to you, and a very good morning to every listener and viewer.
How are you doing?
I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
That's how I'm doing.
You're happy. That is good.
Yes.
We like happy.
Yeah.
Look, as we get into some of these conversations, speaking directly to the president, there's certain areas that we'll look at that need attention. But before we do that, CT will welcome you today with today's proverb. He'll tell you where it's from, and then you can furnish us with your interpretation of the same.
Yes, the whole of this week we have been in the archipelago of Comoros, or the Comoros, a very interesting country, extremely interesting. Around 880,000 people, that's the population of the country. Now, these 888,000 people have, since their independence in 1975, July, they've experienced 20 coups and coup attempts. I keep mentioning this because it's symptomatic of our continent. A continent where turbulence seems to be the norm. And then we wonder why it is we don't make much progress. We wonder why we never seem to move ahead. And we wonder why we are so dependent on other people. And we keep wondering why. Now, the proverb. A whistle will not call back a dog that has escaped from the leash.
Nice one. A whistle will not call back a dog that has escaped from the leash.
No, it won't.
To me, it's more like water spilled. You can't recollect it. It's more like that. It's more like it's. If it's bolted, it's out. The horse is out of. And if it's bolted, it's bolted. It's gone. So you're using something that cannot bring it back, which is the whistle. Try to call it back. You're telling to come back to a place it will come back. I think it's just a connotation of when some things, like water under the bridge, ikipita imepita. Yeah.
If it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, essentially. And that's true. Certain things, when they're gone, and you're not able to get them back unless you use a different kind of tactic. Dear Mr. President is a segment that we have here when we're talking about things that are happening in the country and are necessary for some attention to be paid to directly at the foot of the president. We're looking at some of those issues this morning, and Fanyamambo is going to help us out with some of those as we do. We're going to start off with one of them, which is corruption. Corruption, big ticket item in the country. We continue to look at in as much as it's been talked about for decades. Most recently, the CS for the Treasury, John Badi, said, well, you know what? Perhaps there are ways in which we can now deal with corruption. Perhaps perhaps what we ought to do, because we've tried to go the way of the law, that doesn't seem to work very well, and it takes very long for some of these cases to be tried and then tested. So perhaps what we should do is say, you know what, this money that you have stolen, instead of going to put it in foreign bank accounts, how about you bring it here and let's put it into the country, and let's see then how we can use those proceeds to actually work towards development. This is what was said just a few days ago. There seems to be, dear Mr. President, a lackadaisical manner in which things of corruption are dealt with. And the question is, when are we actually going to see that there is clear-cut ways, that are clear-cut ways of dealing with corruption and sorting those out once and for all? Fanya?
I think first and foremost, let us look at where the bulk of this money goes. You've heard of the famous Swiss accounts? We have countries that know that there are horrible African leaders who will collect so much money and stash it in Swiss accounts, and they'll die before they use that money. It's building roads there. It's giving them good infrastructure. In that country, you can get a loan for everything, even a wedding, because it is the money that Africans have worked for so hard. And all our horrible leaders who stole it have taken it there, and it is building that economy. I mean, those countries that have allowed stupid gluttonous African leaders to stash money in their countries have benefited so much from our money. Because you go to some of those countries, they have nothing. They don't even have a mineral they mine. They can't even grow coffee. They can't grow tea. The cash crop they have is having accounts for foolish leaders just take money and keep there. That's their cash crop. And that money has built those economies and run those economies for a very long time. I think our African leaders need to wake up and to stop being stupid and to realize that there's only so much you can do with money. And that too much of this money that is stashed out there doesn't help us. It's actually stifling our economy. I wish they brought that money back to start.
So you do agree with the CS when he said, actually bring the money back and let's use it to develop the country. Whether or not we'll deal with individuals who took them out there, totally different story. But bring the money back here and let's see how we can use it to work.
First they bring the money back. But as they do that, of course, we shall prosecute them later. We shall first lie to them that we won't. Then once they bring it, we can take them to jail for having brought it back and for having stolen it. But then having said that, I think there's another way to look at it. And what I fear the most is how we go about this whole issue of corruption. Number one, if you come to Nairobi County, for example, there are so many spoiled roads, horrible roads in Kilimani that will not get fixed. Why will they not get fixed? Because when we were growing up, the city county had a grader. They had a tractor driver or an operator, permanent and pensionable. And anytime a road had a problem, the city county would send their grader with a driver. They have a city engineer. They knew where to get the raw materials. They would fix the road. But nowadays, they have decided to turn everything into a tender opportunity. When you look at Kura, for example, Kenyan Urban Roads Authority, there is this another one called Kera. There are so many of them. And imagine their tender outfits. How can you have something called Kenyan Urban Roads Authority and they don't own a shovel? One shovel. Everything they do, in fact, I think we should just call them the Roads Procurement Board. And then we merge them, all of them, into a roads procurement outfit, because the only thing they do is process tenders for roads and give monies to their cronies. There are services that government needs to offer, and we need to learn from other countries. It is very hard for you to go to China, for example, and find a private company fixing a public road. Here you find somebody who cannot fix a toilet, somebody who tells you, "Mi nilisomea beauty." And then I set up a company for tenders. Now that person is given a contract to make a road. And then you wonder why Gong Road, you feel like you're on the ocean, it's a wave. Because it was given to somebody whose qualification was nothing close to anything. They were not even supposed to have been qualified to build a toilet to start with. Now these people are building roads. So corruption is when we say that government needs to start offering services to people as opposed to offering tenders, because what we have created are tender issuing outfits. When you have a county, I'm telling you, there's a guy who's employed by the Nairobi City County. His job description, to drive county grader. 3 months, county grader Jaguruma. And all the roads that are being fixed by private graders.
And that guy is earning a salary every month.
When you change a system, you change a great deal. There used to be a Ministry of Works. And there were roads that the Ministry of Works would look after, and you knew within the region. Now, the configuration that we have, where there are roads that look for urban, rural, some look for highways, look after highways, that configuration theoretically makes sense. But when you look at what gets done in the name of supervision, because that is one of the roles that these institutions are supposed to carry out, you have to ask, what exactly do they supervise? Because the road is repaired because it was damaged. 2 drops of rainfall on the road and suddenly you have gaping holes.
Hey, City, not even 2 drops of road. They intentionally start repairing those roads when the rains start. So that means they have to wait until the rains end, then repair the road. I can tell you for a fact, because along Naivasha Road, when the rain started, that's when they started cutting. So now as we speak, we have potholes and whatnot because it's the county or those who manage the roads that put those potholes on the roads.
Meaning they started repairing the road, the sort of triangles you see on the road, they want to repair before it rained. By the way, what that means, since vehicles are still on that road, that so-called triangle will actually get bigger.
Yes.
So are we saying, even as we address the president and we're looking at some issues that need to be paid attention to this morning, dear Mr. President, are we saying that perhaps he's unaware? Or are we saying at the same time that some of these issues are maybe too small for him to be looking at into detail, and that he has actually put people in place who should be watching over some of these issues, and that the corruption watchdog that has also been placed, right in government is not doing its job? Has the president failed, or has the people?
Let's just say that those ones, we can excuse him and say they are too small for him. But there's one that is not too small for him.
What's that?
We were told 1.3 trillion was withdrawn. Ni kama kwa ATM. 1.3 trillion. Fantastically. And we are okay as a country. And we have also been told that there's a lot of money that is not going, especially look at the SHA, that is not going through the exchequer. It's just going into some funny accounts. And we are okay with that. So it's not, and I usually say, if the president is not aware, what's wrong with resigning? Because if you don't understand what's going on, it's okay to resign and let somebody who understands what is going on continue to be president.
Mr. Mambo, how many presidents have you seen resigning on this country?
No. You see, I've always told people, you remember this famous KDF telling us how we are not supposed to say Ruto must go.
No, that's not what he said.
Here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
They said that song they don't want to hear.
That is not what he said. I happened to be at that particular lecture. It is not what he said.
Tell us what he said.
What he said is actually summarized in today's Nation, and I will read to you what the Nation has said.
Yes.
So when some people say, this is with reference and quoting Chief of Defense Forces General Charles Kahariri, so when some people say they are tired of this government, a government they elected on their own, and say must go, that must go must be done according to the Constitution.
Exactly. That's what I was coming to. I was saying there are very many other parts of the Constitution we haven't explored, and resignation is one of them. It's provided for in the Constitution. For any president who feels like Kenyans are disturbing him with a lot of noise and saying he must go, he can invoke that part of the Constitution that is called resignation, and he can resign. There's also another one that we haven't tried, and we were hoping IEBC comes. I have a case in court, and we were saying we want a referendum this year for Kenyans to decide whether they want President Ruto to continue being president or not. That case is in court. In fact, we were just waiting to get a hearing date and everything, and we are praying that the judges give us our wish. We do a referendum because it's media to determine whether we want to continue having him or not. So in answering him, would like to tell him, KDF, nobody is interested in anarchy. In fact, we are so invested in this country. Aujui kuna wengine wetu tuko na biashara ya smoki kitu kadogo, and that is a huge investment for us, and we don't want to lose it. So we are not going to allow this country to go into anarchy. We want a good way of removing the president from office, and I promise you it's going to be constitutional.
Kinuthia, one would beg to ask, as we talk about corruption in terms of the government must deal with it and whatnot, what is the responsibility of us as citizens in making sure that we equally don't partake in the same?
Now, you are asking a very hard question about citizens not partaking in corruption. And it was going to be very hard. Just look at the presidential tour that was happening within the mountain. And already you've seen complaints of people saying, we have not been paid. We were promised that we shall get money. We were promised that we shall get money
for appearing
during these particular rallies.
Yeah.
And we have appeared and we have not been paid.
But the Citizenry could have as well just said no. come
No,
whether
you
we show up or
you
not.
see,
Don't
you
show up.
see, I come from Mount Kenya, and in Mount Kenya we have a saying. You know, he thinks he's the only one who has a monopoly of proverbs. We're saying you don't bury.
Actually, no. I think you think that I have a monopoly of proverbs.
So we say you don't bury the elephant with its tusks. It's very wrong. You know, when the elephant dies, you don't bury it. So we have an elephant we are planning to bury in 2027. So we need to remove the tusks. This money that is being brought is our money anyway, we know.
So you might as well take it.
So we just want to take it, but we have told people, we've put a disclaimer. This is not the kind of money that you buy milk for your son with. Yeah, they might start becoming number last in class. Hii ni pesa mbaya unalipa nayo deni mbaya ya Fuliza, sijui ya Shylock, you pay if you have a bad landlord. This is the kind of money you collect and pay those bad debts. And then the clean money that you earn from your sweat, you can use it, you can buy milk and food for your children.
You're being serious?
Yes, I am.
So it's okay for citizens to be corrupt. That's what
It's not okay for citizens to be corrupt, but it's okay for citizens to receive their money that is coming back.
You are a lawyer, and you know full well that with our laws, the person who participates in something which is corrupt or illegal is not just as guilty as the person who is doing the corrupting. They are the case in point, stolen goods.
Yes.
If you are found with stolen goods,
you go in.
Your case is far more serious than the person who actually stole the goods.
Yes.
Because you are encouraging that particular economic activity.
No, Mount Kenya is very different. Let me explain. This particular presidential tour, we were being paid listening allowance, appearing allowance. You know, it is very hard for you to sit and listen to lies. You need to be paid to listen to lies. And you need to set a time frame about, you know, ikipita 30 minutes, you increase the allowance. So this was a contract. It was a contract for services. It is hard for you to get crowds where we are. So we are providing crowds for you.
Crowds for hire, essentially, is what you're saying. And you're being paid. It's a contractual obligation.
It's a contractual
just like somebody
obligation.
who would bring tents and chairs or be a caterer.
Because you can imagine that meeting would have had tents, chairs, loudspeakers and everything, but nobody to be addressed. So there was this missing link. These people provided the people to be addressed, and it was being provided for a fee. It was an agreement. Only that these people, they didn't keep their end of the bargain. Because I'll tell you why. You remember when you remember when the famous this American agency, what you said, came to an end. They said they were spending $389 million in this country. When you multiply, it's 5 billion. Can you imagine all the USA said vehicles we saw, all those programs we saw, all those NGOs that have been having conferences in hotels? And by the way, it was impacting our economy. Everything we saw USAID was 5 billion shillings per year. We have an allocation of 27 billion for our president for travel, leisure, accommodation.
27 billion?
Yes. That's what we are spending in a year.
27 billion?
Yes.
Per year?
The other day, they just allocated him an extra 5 billion. I think waliona itoshi. So, and I sat with a parliamentarian on set and I was telling him, shame on you, because you're one of those people who sat the other day and approved 5 billion for the president, and he's alone. And that's what USAID is spending on the whole country for a whole year with all their programs that have impact that we can see. So it goes to tell you where the problem is. I wish if the president sat at Harambee House, you can imagine how many. That's the problem we have. I don't know what he's doing on top of Land Cruisers. He needed to have sat at Harambee House, would have saved a lot of money. And that money can go into free primary education and all these other programs that needed to be done. In fact, I have said as opposition, because I'm in opposition family, that we have a 20-point agenda on how we want to do things after 2027. Number 1 is Ruto must go. Number 2 is Ruto must go. Number 3 is Ruto must go. All the way until number 10.
Okay.
Ruto must go. That's the first 10-point agenda, because it's very simple to sell to Mwananchi.
Okay.
So the first 10 points.
And after he has
So
gone.
number 11 is that we are going to pass a law in parliament that prohibits a president from spending 600 million to go around launching projects for 20 million. Some of them were transformers, some of them were bulbs, some of them were green pipes for water, ile pipe we unaweza eka ama MCA eke. And some of them he opened classes worth 600,000. We must come up with a law that will prohibit the president from spending 600 million on a tour to go and launch projects worth 15 million or 5 million or 6 million. That must come to an end.
Are those launching of projects, or are those projects that essentially were already there and it was relaunching of projects? So we're looking at an even bigger issue here, whereby we see that, certain things, we saw that they were in existence before. So there's a spending of money that has taken place. And are we linking this directly? Because it's using state resources that could easily go somewhere else. And we're not making the link between these projects, which had already been there and had not been completed, but we're spending more money to go and relaunch them in the name of looking for votes for 2027. This seems to me like a circus of the most bizarre, and that's happening. How do we then address some of these issues and say, come on, we can see exactly what's going on here? But we don't. You know what we do? We say, pay us, what did you call it? Crowds for hire. We'll come and we'll sing and dance for you. Whereas the crowds could actually say, hey, come on, hold on a minute. This electric fence, you already launched it, Buana. Can we move on? This tap, you've launched it already. This sewer station or whatever it was that was, this has already been launched. The thing, we are waiting for it to even be finished and you've come and relaunched it. We should be able to address the president and be able to say, come on, we can see exactly what's happening here.
The alternative would have been worse. And I'm glad, I thank the people of Mount Kenya. I've always told them, never go out there to heckle the president. It is bad manners. In fact, you'd rather stay at home than go heckle him. So I've always told people, democracy does not mean bad manners. I would never leave my house to go and heckle the head of state. I have always told our people not to do that. So if you have to go there and get a listening allowance for listening to things that will not happen. Bado tunangoja machine ya chapati and a few other things.
It's going to take a minute, but okay.
Yeah, but going there to heckle the president is something we have never advocated for. It's not in good taste. Let him come. Let him, and it's because actually he's shown to some extent he's a gentleman. They are paying. You remember border guys had gone to State House to demand for their money, and I hear they think they were paid. That's why they are no longer there making noise about their money. So, but these trips have been also very unfortunate for Kenyans. First, you remember we lost a French national when it was happening in Nairobi, accidentally going on a presidential motorcade. And then we have also lost so much property. You remember the thieves who were following the president. And they think they love the president because everywhere he went, they would follow. They were stealing phones in the daylight. They were robbing people. They were, and that presidential tour became a very, very expensive thing for people. I'm glad that those thieves did not follow him in Mount Kenya because we've not had complaints of robberies that have happened after that. So these things need to be put.
They don't follow him to Mount Kenya.
They didn't. I think they forgot the direction to that side. But the bulk of Nairobi, they did a lot of bad things. And we are hoping and praying that where we are living, we don't want another presidential tour because it's going to cost us funds and women are going to lose their passes. And I mean, a lot of people, and they might just knock down another guy. So we just pray that those visits first come to an end. There's a lot the president can achieve from Harambee House. We've always submitted. There's so much he can achieve from sitting at the office as opposed to being on the roads.
That is what you think, isn't it?
That's what I know.
You see, what we see the president doing is what the president wants to do. That's how he sees himself achieving the goals that he has. And methods such as the ones we now see are the ones he used. Perhaps more vigorously, perhaps more energetically, perhaps many more times to actually get the mountain to vote for him.
Explain to me, I would want to understand like a 3-year-old, how a person will come and get RSF and host them at KICC in broad daylight and cause us to lose exports just on tea only to Sudan worth 5 billion. And then go around a whole mountain launching projects that don't amount to 500 million. What is the common sense? What's the logic in doing things that makes a nation lose 5 billion in terms of tea exports? And I'm glad the Sudanese embassy came out very clearly and said, we are not importing anything from Kenya anymore. And it's not just tea that we are selling to them. Now Sudan is not buying from us. Our tea is stuck in Mombasa and someone is busy coming to you to launch classrooms and Stigma and transformers and Kenya Power poles. Yeah, and people have closed their shops and markets are not operating. Do you know how much money people lose when a whole market is closed for a day? And how badly that impacts on the economy.
You see,
what kind of economic policy is that?
You are a political leader in the mountain.
Yes.
You are the one who's just told us how the mountain understands the give and take principle of. You want us to come and converse with you, we want a sitting allowance.
Facilitate us.
You want us to... Now, you, the political leaders and your ilk, are the ones who have the duty of also... What you've just said is pertinent, very pertinent, of informing your people. But did we see them understanding that correlation? They came up in large numbers. What did that achieve? They were polite. What if they had stayed away to show that they are not happy with the decisions that have been made that really impact them economically?
I'll tell you something. And we know this to be true. The president does what he wants.
Yes.
And it is very easy to get any Kikuyu speaking person, put them in a bus and take them wherever. I mean, we saw how many borders followed him for kilometers. So it was either the people of that locality benefit from that money, he was still going to have a meeting, or the buses that we saw, and there were many, and they are full on the internet, there were so many, carrying some people even from as far as Dandora, as long as you can speak Kikuyu. So those meetings would still have happened, and there would still have been Kikuyu speaking people there, and you would still have said that the people of Mount Kenya are with him.
What would be the president?
What we are saying is, let's say the people of Murang'a said we are not coming out. What would stop him from getting Kikuyus from Dandora and Kayole and Umoja and filling them in one space? And remember, they were very clever. No meeting was done in a stadium. All their meetings were being done in business marketplaces.
By the roadside of the market.
Closing roads so that you just cause congestion and make it appear like you have a crowd.
What would be the message to the president? We're going to take a break at this point. We're looking around this whole, corruption issue and saying how you deal with it. It seems like your message is, we're not addressing him, but we're saying that you need to go.
The message is simple. Sit down at your office. The president has an office. And work from your office, not from the Land Cruiser top. Kenyans will be happy. President Kibaki worked so much from his office. He only made 33 international trips in 10 years. And he was rarely seen going around markets. In fact, he had a problem when he came to launch a project and he found idlers. He was saying, what are these people doing? We came to launch a dam. We just need the few people who are related to the dam, and that's it. Why should we have people closing their businesses to come and see President Kibaki? That's the kind of thinking the president needs to have. He should be thoroughly disillusioned to see people available on a Tuesday.
Fanya mambo, that was President Kibaki's style. What we're seeing is President Ruto's style.
Which is a bad style.
Okay.
Let's take a break. On that note, it's 26 minutes to 10. Dear Mr. President, that's what we're talking about. We've talked about certain things and how, state resources are being used. We're looking at how, the style that is being used to get votes, where there should be work that should be ongoing. There's certain things that should be done at a particular time and being done in a cycle. Fanya Mambu Kinuthia is our guest this hour. Dear Mr. President is a segment that we're on. We're coming back and we're looking at other areas to which we will address, Dear Mr. President.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Friday morning has not been too bad in terms of traffic. We've looked around the city, just as Nairobi, and also interestingly enough around the country today, not much with traffic. Kangunda Road still pretty busy as you come as you go outbound towards Njiro, and there is still some traffic coming in right at the Pangani underpass off the Thika Superhighway. Limuru Road usually is busy Fridays, and it looks like it's going to be just as busy on this one. There is still some traffic left on Landis Road as you head out towards the Kamkunji roundabout, and then getting on to Haile Selassie round Wakulima. Traffic continues. Let's see what happens through the morning. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on X.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. Apply for the I&M Bank World Credit MasterCard on the I&M Bank on the Go app. Swipe, earn and live your best life. What's even better, every 20th customer to get the card gets 50,000 Milele reward points worth 50,000 shillings.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 9 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
24 minutes to 10 o'clock. Dear Mr. President, this Friday, there are certain things that we are looking at, once again, as we normally do every week. And as you've gone around the country on tours, whether it started off in the northeastern part of the country, and then at the coast, and then into Western Kenya, and then into Nairobi, and where we are seeing that tour then ends in central Kenya today. The development agenda in terms of the clicks and ticks that is going to be given, we still have a few problems here, don't we? And where we've looked at certain things happening whereby projects have been launched and relaunched. We unfortunately have too many cases of too many projects that have started and have not been completed. I do remember that in the last administration, which of course is not yours, we looked at one county where 180 projects that should have been finished were not. We don't know where those have gone today. I mean, there are big ticket items which slap us in the face, dear Mr. President, and ask the question, when will these be finished? Is there merit in actually the next administration taking on from a previous one, saying, you know what, my agenda will be to finish everything that we have started? And we will not get to the place where we start new projects, regardless of what we are seeing that legacy achievements will be, that everything that had started before, we will complete them, we will pay pending bills, we will make sure that things are running as they should before we touch new projects. Merit in that?
I don't think that the Kenyans have made it clear that there are only 3 projects that they want completed. Those 3 projects are very close to the hearts of Kenyans. And those 3 projects would leave money at the disposal of Kenyans to do everything else. Project number 1, make sure that the healthcare system is working. Kenyans want to be sure that if I take my old ailing mom to hospital, that this shasheshishoshu will pay. That's what Kenyans want. And they want it to be functional and working. Project number 2, university funding model. Kenyans want to know, help was so predictable. They want a system that they know works. And project number 3 that Kenyans want very much is the capitation to schools. Anybody who has a child in a school in Kenya today will tell you they are paying twice the amount of fees they ever paid before this administration came into place. High schools have become very expensive. Primary schools have become very expensive. And what they are doing is they are trying to lie to you and give bursaries to your area MP so that the area MP can make you queue for a whole day. And then they become a small god and they give you 5,000 and then you clap for that MP. But what Kenyans want is just allocate money to school. When parents know that their children are going to school, the money they would have spent on fees, they will spend on other things that will develop their lives. So these other shenanigans of telling us that you are building more, I don't know what, Kenyans are not ready for that right now. First, fix the basics. You cannot go into doing all those other turnkey projects before the basics are fixed. Work on the basics, make sure the basics are making sense, and then now start doing other things. You can't come home and start telling your wife, I want to paint the ceiling and the roof is leaking. You work on the basics first, and then the rest of the things will fall in place.
Yet, Kinuthia, one would argue that as much as we have these projects that have to work, we have education, we have healthcare that have to work, the funding model, which, yes, we agree must work, but there's a business somewhere, businessman or a farmer somewhere who wants a road to work for them to be able to equally contribute economically to the republic. So what we are asking is, in terms of ensuring that, say, let me give you an example. If you walk around the SHA offices, there is a road that was being constructed by Uhuru Kenyatta that was abandoned upon this administration coming into place. And we beg to ask, because that is a road that was constructed using public money. It has been abandoned, public money down the drain. Is there need to start new projects and leave projects that had been budgeted for money spent to just go into waste?
I think we don't get it. What is not happening is what I would call common sense. Common sense is not happening. There are people who are not in good terms with common sense. It walks in, they walk out. Let me explain. How many graders do we have lying idle at NYS, for example? We just needed to do a total audit of the equipment that this country has and who has them. Even military, they have a lot. 70% of Kenyans live in the rural areas. Kenyans have not asked you to give them a tarmac road in their rural area. They've asked you to give them a motorable road. If we had common sense happening in the minds of people, It is possible to say, for example, NYS, specific areas, send them out with those graders that are lying idle, by the way, and rotting in yards. Government equipment is rotting in so many yards. And it is possible to make those roads motorable for Kenyans fast. That does not require any launching. Remember, as I told you, here at Nairobi City County, we have graders zimelala in specific yards. One of them is up Dagoretti. And those graders have an operator na ameandikiwa to drive county grader, permanent and pensionable, na inakaa miezi 3 ijaguruma. And we are speaking about somebody coming to launch roads. Those graders are supposed to be on the road because the driver is there. You're not hiring a new driver. They have fuel. They have an allocation. I'm telling you, this country does not need anything outside of what we have. We don't even need to launch. We just need a common sense governor who says, how many graders are available in my county? And where do we send them out today? And keep a record of what they are doing every day. We shall fix all our roads. So, I can tell you for free.
So there could be a common sense issue, but there also could be an attention deficit issue, whereby attention is not being paid to the things that, require this attention. I mean, as you say it sounds like a no-brainer, that you should be able to look around and say, come on, what are we dealing with here? That it's very simple, that all you need to do is move this block to this block and it fits perfectly in the space. It fits. I mean, it's you looking at the puzzle, and this is the shape of the missing piece, and the missing piece is right here. All you need to do is take it and put it there. So, I mean, it's an paying attention to issues. And everybody that we look at who is in a position to make a decision, most people either have been given the mandate by the people or have been given the responsibility to do the work as appointment by the president. Do your job. Are we looking at an issue whereby people are just not doing their jobs? Do your job. You mentioned some critical issues. We talk about health. We can talk about it for hours. Look at the issues here. We talk about education, and that thing is still upside down from where it even began. And you have people who have been put in these positions to handle these matters. The development agenda, you have people who deal with investment. You have people who deal with trade. You have people who deal with manufacturing. You have people who deal with infrastructure across board. Is there too much to handle?
It's too much to handle for a brain that is incapable. I have seen this as the most special administration, where you look for the damnedest person in the room, you hire them, and then you get them 7 advisors. I have never understood that concept of someone with 7 advisors. You look for the damnedest, the person with the least thinking capacity. You hire them, and then you hire for them 7 advisors. Why don't you just get the brilliant one, and then you don't need 7 advisors? What is happening is the reason we are where we are is because many of the people who occupy the positions they occupy have no idea what they're supposed to be doing there. And that's why I told you those things that just require common sense and your eyes and looking and being able to fix things are not happening, and they are not being done.
You see, when you talk about common sense, I remember when the military took control of Nairobi, NMS, and the first thing they did was fix all the vehicles that had been lying idle in yards. Second thing they did is they repaired, I think it was a mining site where they would get material to fix
the asphalt plant.
The asphalt plant. And what that did is we saw Nairobi roads being repaired every day, and one would hope that with the new administration, those are things that they would pick and continue with them. So in terms of continuity, in terms of projects and whatnot, I mean, you talk about common sense. It seems as though it is not there.
Government, by the way, should not be looking for money right now. I mean, if you were to call out every minister and tell us how many vehicles, how many equipment are lying in your yard. I mean, you go to any parastatal, it is common sense. You'll find a Land Rover Nambua, battery iliisha, and then it didn't start for some time, and then they changed one tire and these vehicles are literally new, the bulk of them. They have very small problems. If government was to wake up today and decide they are going to auction everything that is lying idle, everything in the name of government, a Land Rover, a Land Cruiser, a pickup, one, whatever, Kenya would collect a lot of money.
You would mop up a pretty penny.
You would mop up a lot of money, and it would help us to be able to run this country. But unfortunately, that's not where we are. But also it would be good for us, as even we have this conversation, to talk about something that is very, very, very close to the hearts of Kenyans. So that is the IEBC. Because, Mr. President, you people are about to constitute an IEBC. And by sheer good luck or bad luck, the bulk of the people we are seeing having qualified to the list of the those who could have gone for interview are people who have interacted with yourselves in one way or another and campaigned for some of you and been in the camps of some of you, and they're about to become IEBC commissioners. I would have wanted to fight that like the others. But then I have listened to Kenyans, and Kenyans have said, even if this administration gets 9 family members, 7 family members, brothers, sisters, uncles, and puts them there, all we want is IEBC. And we have decided the votes against this administration, we shall make them so many that even IEBC will be telling you we are related, but it is hard to steal these ones. So just give us an IEBC, Kenyans have said. Even if you give us your cronies, it is fine. It is very interesting that out of the thousands of applications we got, the bulk of those people who are making it to the interviews are just people who've been close to you. So it was a predetermined thing. We are okay. In fact, we are telling those people who want to choose their own IEBC, hire your own brother, your sister, your uncle, your cousin if you can.
Just put them
we will
there.
still beat you as long as we have an IEBC duly constituted by the Constitution, because we are this one country that has got only 22 million voters, and we are finding it necessary to have 7 commissioners for IEBC. Countries like India that have 990 million voters, not inhabitants, voters, have an IEBC that has got 3 commissioners, and it's working. We are spending about 2,800 shillings per voter. They asked for 61 billion. 61 billion, if you do your maths and divide by the 22 million voters, it means that each voter, it costs 2,800 shillings per voter to vote. UK, a very developed country, they spend 480 shillings per voter. Our neighbors, Rwanda, here spends 129 shillings per voter. Nigeria, with 100 million voters, not inhabitants. Nigeria with 100 million voters spends about 1,000 shillings per voter to vote. And countries that are developed, bigger countries like the US, they spend about 700 shillings per person to vote. Sisi tuna spend 2,800 shillings to vote. It goes to tell you that we have bad manners in how we manage our resources.
Wow. Messages to the president this morning. And, you know, even as the week then does come to an end, there's certain things that we are saying that we would like to get attention on. CT, your message to the president.
Okay, Mr. President, the clock is ticking. And every good thing or bad thing comes to an end. And the political shelf life of any politician comes with the idea and the conversation around a legacy. And that legacy stays with you long, long, long after you have gone. Should the legacy be a legacy of the president who transformed Kenya and made it into the powerhouse of the continent and beyond? Or will it be the legacy of a president whose people at every turn were disappointed by promises which were never kept? It's a decision that must be made, and the only person who can make that decision is you, Mr. President. You have time, but that time is ticking. In fact, one could argue that we're almost at the 11th hour. But the decision is yours, and only yours, and yours alone.
Dennis?
Dear Mr. President, I live in this country, but one thing that happens is I am not so safe or feel as though my security is assured. We live at a time when abductions have become the order of the day, and even those responsible, including yourself, say you do not know who is abducting Kenyans. It behoves upon you as an authority and someone who was given the opportunity to serve the people of Kenya to take care of the security of each and every single person. Mr. President, extrajudicial killings is something that has happened, and even the cases that have been reported, we see no movement towards that in making sure that justice is served. We talk about the gangs that are wielding pangas in broad daylight, threatening our economic activities like tourism at the coast, Mr. President. That needs to be addressed. We talk about the chiefs who were abducted. What's the story? What's the progress? That has gone quiet. Yesterday, or the other day, we saw a headstone being put in Turkana for those who were killed in your country, Mr. President. And Kenyans are telling you, our security is wanting. We need you to address that, Mr. President. Security cannot be taking care of you, yet next door, a few meters, Kenyans are being robbed in broad daylight in a presidential function. Mr. President, security is paramount, not just for you, but for the entire republic.
Dear Mr. President, I see that the focus over the last couple of weeks has been what will happen in 2027. Dear Mr. President, you've been around the country. You've seen what's happening with development. You yourself have made promises about certain things that are going to be happening with state resources. That speaks one thing to me, that it is clear in your mind that what development should be like in Kenya, it is not yet. And that's why we see some of the promises being made, because you understand that to a certain extent, things that should have been done have not been done. Dear Mr. President, you went to Northeastern. You saw the things that happened. By the way, the 5 gentlemen who had been kidnapped or abducted, we still don't know where they are. Mr. President, this happened a day before you landed in that area, and you told us that you were going to do whatever it took to make sure that they were found. It would be great to know what happened to them. Dear Mr. President, you then, when you left there, talked about roads that would be built, and you talked about things that would happen. I think it's great that you did. That means that the realization that these things don't exist is top on your mind, one would hope. You then went to the coast, and you then went and said different things. You talked about electricity. You again talked about roads. You then went to the western part of the nation, where you made further promises. You came to Nairobi, where you did, like Fanya Mambo says this morning, mention about, a chapati machine. You talked about turning one of the largest slums in East Africa into a city on its own. I don't know if you realized the mere intricacy of doing that when those promises were made. You then have gone to Central, where you've talked about certain things. So I wonder, Mr. President, were these things said because you want to make sure that development is top, or were these things said because you want Kenyans to give you another opportunity to have another go at the presidency? My hope would be, dear Mr. President, that it was because you really do want to see Kenya flourish. It would be my hope, Mr. President, that you would want to see road infrastructure improved. It would be my hope that you actually do want to see young children go to school in a system that made sense from beginning to end. It would be my hope, dear Mr. President, that you wanted to actually see water flow in taps, and not that you were making promises so that people could put you back in the presidential seat come 2027. Dear Mr. President, there's a lot to be done, and I actually do feel sometimes that you're juggling many balls in the air. But it would be great to see that you're actually trying to make sure that each of those balls is knocked or popped and make sure that something is done. There's a lot of work to be done, Mr. President, and I hope that as you do go around, that it is for the work to be done and not the currency that's being paid for votes to come in 2027. Fanya Mambo, over to you.
Dear Mr. President, I will speak to you as someone who comes from Dagoretti South constituency. Dear Mr. President, I would like to tell you we have a huge problem with the idea of cleaning up Nairobi River. Dear Mr. President, I have seen your people come and tried to mark beacons. They have said that they are going to go 30 to 60 meters into our land in the name of riparian land. Dear Mr. President, they are saying that we are not supposed to be on that riparian land. Remember, in Dagoretti South, like any other place, we have freehold titles. Dear Mr. President, our grandfathers are buried in those places. Dear Mr. President, they are saying that they are going to destroy the houses that we have afforded on riparian land to build affordable housing that my people have chosen to call avoidable housing. Dear Mr. President, they are only doing that within Dagoretti South and Dagoretti North. When it gets to Lavington, they kind of forget that there is riparian land and that we are supposed to cede 60 meters. They are not doing it. Dear Mr. President, when it gets to Kileleshwa, they completely forget and they build on top of this particular river. Dear Mr. President, we are saying that the people of Dagoretti South are willing to give you 60 meters into their land under the condition that the people of Lavington, the people of Kileleshwa, and the people of every other place along that river are also going to cede 60 meters. As I finish, dear Mr. President, I want to tell you that the people within the county who are telling you that and the Ministry of Environment appear not to be very good bedfellows with common sense. There is a tributary right outside Muslim Primary School. that tributary pours water into Nairobi River. The Nairobi City County has turned that tributary into a dumping site. There is a huge heap of garbage being dumped by the Nairobi City County outside Muslim Primary School in Kawangware, right there at the gate. And they are dumping heaps of garbage on top of a tributary that pours into the river that you are cleaning downstream. And then your people are wondering where garbage is coming from downstream. These people are not good bedfellows with common sense, because if they were, they would know that tributaries pour into rivers, and they would know that rivers end up downstream, and you'd be collecting garbage that is being poured by Nairobi City County right outside Muslim Primary School. Dear Mr. President, it's not possible to clean up Nairobi River when you have Sakajas County pouring garbage outside the gate of a primary school at a tributary that flows into the same river. Thank you.
The opportunities lie, dear Mr. President, to actually turn Kenya into a robust economic powerhouse. Dear Mr. President, the opportunities lie right here in your hands. While this is happening, I would like to take the opportunity to remind you today that 2027, you have a bill of 117 billion shillings that needs to be paid. It's a loan. The year after that, there's yet another loan of almost a similar amount that needs to be paid, and these payments go well into 2032. If you were to become president again in 2027, these are the things that await you. Dear Mr. President, we're looking at a situation whereby your children in this country are making selections into a system whereby you don't have enough teachers because they've chosen to go into the private system because the public system just does not work. This is happening now. It's not happening futurely, it's happening now. Dear Mr. President, there are people who are walking into hospital today who are not able to bank on a system which you promised would work from day one. There are people who are not able to eat one meal a day, talk less of 3. This is happening in a country where you're making promises about things that you want to happen because you want to come back to be president. There are things that need to be done. There are things that need to be done today.
Dear Mr. President, as we talk about development in the country, remember that for a country to move, there needs to be circulation of money. And with that, we talk about the government being at the forefront in paying over 600 billion shillings in pending bills that Kenyans supplied services. And Mr. President, your government is not paying. Mr. President, we're talking about lives that have been destroyed, lives that have been shattered, and families that have been broken, businesses that would inject into the economy that have closed down because Mr. President, you are not paying the pending bills. Mr. President, perhaps one of the most important things to do, like Kinodia says, get off the land cruisers, work for Kenyans. The monies that are being spent in traveling and being wasted, Mr. President, perhaps could be given to Kenyans who demand to be paid the monies for services offered to the government, Mr. President, City on pending bills.
Dear Mr. President, we are a very unique country. In the previous government, money was allocated for pending bills. And we were informed that that particular money, the amount would be sufficient to clear the pending bills. It was a huge amount. It is strange, the money seems to have been spent and yet we still have pending bills. You were the deputy president then. We keep accumulating projects that are incomplete, and yet we keep initiating new ones. Dear Mr. President, every presidency has to come to an end. Yours will. I repeat what I said earlier on. What will you be remembered for? What will your government be remembered for? And how will that pan out into the future? And how will that pan out for you?
Indeed. Questions to end conversations with this week, and we'll do that as often as we need to. Fanyamamba, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for being Asante-san, and thank you all for being part of Kenya's biggest conversation this week. Getting into the weekend, have a good one and be up and about in terms of your conscience and also in terms of the things that you do. Good morning. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life